Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Naruto. There is a big problem with my love life options. Chapter 81. Black Zetsu, with his hands handcuffed, couldn't help but curse, and said angrily, "What benefits did that stinky brat Xiaolin Yifeng give you to make you work so hard for him?" Dignity and equality. Whirlpool-faced White Zetsu smiled softly and said, "This is something you will never give me." Black Zetsu was stunned and said in disbelief, "What the hell are you guys crazy about? You are not even human, and you are pursuing this." "We are not human, but we are people." White Zetsu 007, who was standing next to Whirlpool-faced White Zetsu, spoke lightly and mocked, "Unlike you crazy dogs, who only live to destroy." "What?" Black Zetsu was stunned by this guy's scolding, and his two yellow eyes widened. "Crazy, mad dog. It has been working hard for thousands of years to revive its mother, and now it is called a mad dog. The most important thing is that it was scolded by an inconspicuous White Zetsu clone. Unbelievable. It was just the cytoplasm split from the White Zetsu's body, but he was his mother's own flesh and blood. How dare he do that? Black Zetsu, I see you are very dissatisfied." White Zetsu 007 sneered and grinned, "If you have the guts, call your mother out and see if our leader will punish her." "I don't think the leader will do it." The whirlpool-faced White Zetsu suddenly stopped and touched his chin and said, "What if she cries after being beaten? It will damage the reputation of our leader." Right, indeed," the other White Zetsu echoed. "You." Black Zetsu was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. Why didn't he know that these White Zetsu clones had such an infuriating skill before? "I'm so anxious. Ha 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 ha, I'm angry. It's really interesting." The White Zetsu made a lot of ridicule, and Black Zetsu really felt that his head was big. "Okay, we've arrived." The whirlpool-faced White Zetsu stopped in front of a cage and opened the door. "I wish you can get along harmoniously with your new cellmate." Black Zetsu instinctively felt that something was wrong, but before it could say anything, a large group of White Zetsu had already disappeared into the prison. "I've been waiting for you here for a long time, Zetsu." A familiar voice sounded from the dark of the prison. Black Zetsu turned his head stiffly and saw Obito's slightly hideous face. "Black Zetsu, he won't be beaten to death, will he?" In the office of the leader of the Wave Country, Kushina looked at the scene in front of her and smiled gloatingly. "This thing is essentially a product of yin-yang escape. It's difficult to kill it." Yi Feng shook his head calmly and said, "Unless Obito can awaken the Samsara Eye on the spot." Obito's mentality was messed up by you. He didn't awaken the Samsara Eye. It can only be said that his talent is too poor. Mrs. Makoto laughed in an exaggerated tone. "Speaking of this, you are still the best." Kushina looked at her best friend and said with a smile, "Let your eldest son's ex-girlfriend wear a maid outfit and a collar. I didn't think of such a good idea. It's just a sudden thought. I thought Quan would refuse." Mrs. Masaka gathered her hair at the temples and said with a complicated expression, "Our family really owes her too much. Fugaku's family education is a bit problematic, but the key is that your eldest son has a hole in his brain." Kushina sneered and said, "You two should have taken him to see a psychologist earlier." "You are talking nonsense again. Where is there a psychologist in the ninja world?" Mrs. Masaka rolled her eyes. Yifeng did not participate in the conversation between the two ladies. He fiddled with the potted plant on the windowsill with his hands, and his expression was very focused. "It's been 2 hours. What's so fun about your little sapling?" Kushina came up to him, put her arms around his neck and said, "You touch it more seriously than you touch me." PFF. "Kushina, what kind of lewd words are you saying?" Mrs. Makoto almost spit out a mouthful of salt soda. Yifeng couldn't help but twitch his mouth, and said with a frown, "Sister, you are not interesting. This tree of life must be manually cared for every day to grow faster." "So what is its function?" Kushina looked at the potted plant in front of her with curiosity. "It can improve the physical fitness of all living beings within the range, and can also enhance the ability to condense chakra." Yifeng's mouth curled up and he laughed softly. "If this thing grows up, it can turn everyone in the land of waves into a super genius." "That's really incredible." Kushina nodded suddenly and said generously, "Then I will allow you to spend some of your time touching me every day for it." Yi Feng felt very uncomfortable and laughed stiffly. Mrs. Makoto shook her head helplessly and sighed. Angrily, the calmness of a wife, right? But this is a plant, not a new concubine. That's hard to say. Kushina blinked and said in a teasing tone, even the tailed beasts can wear maid outfits, maybe one day a plant can really enter our house as a concubine. Are you talking about white Zetsu? Mrs. Makoto covered her mouth and her eyes widened. God, white Zetsu. Yi Feng found that the imaginations of these two ladies are getting more and more terrifying now, and simple human fantasies can no longer satisfy them. He wanted to speak to stop the increasingly crooked topic in front of him, but the golden option interface suddenly popped up at this time. Choose. 1. Use the enlightenment skill on the Tree of Life and propose on the spot. 2. Let Kushina write the words, the fourth Hokage's wife was here, on your snow white and clean bigu. 3. Give Uchiha Obito a wonderful videotape of your intimate interaction with Nohara Rin. What a hook. Looking at the options that popped up in front of him, Yi Feng was completely dumbfounded. There is no choice at all. Use the enlightenment skill on the Tree of Life, and propose on the spot. Oh my god, what if it really turns into a human? Plant girl, right, the second one is even more nascent, and writing this thing will be a mark for the rest of your life. As for the third one, he passed it without hesitation. His own reputation and innocence are not worth worrying about, but affecting other girls is really a crime that deserves death. After thinking for a long time, Yi Feng finally decided to choose one. In fact, he was also quite curious, could this Tree of Life really turn into a plant girl? Taking a deep breath, Yi Feng raised his right hand to activate the skill. Enlightenment technique. The halo circulated, and the whole potted plant instantly became bright and shining. This dazzling light naturally attracted the attention of the two ladies, and they looked at Yi Feng curiously. What are you doing? After more than 10 seconds of silence, the imagined plant girl was not born. Yi Feng was relieved, and under the puzzled gaze of the two ladies, he reached out and picked up a leaf of the Tree of Life with a sense of ceremony. Miss Tree of Life, please, marry me. ? This outrageous operation made the two ladies dumbfounded on the spot. Congratulations on getting a mysterious intercom. Mysterious intercom. Yi Feng looked at the object that appeared in his palm and couldn't help but want to curse. This is just an ordinary smartphone. It is indeed a very mysterious object in this ninja world, but it was everywhere in his previous life. This system, just use this thing to fool people. Forget it. Suppressing his anger, Yi Feng cleared his throat and said, it's getting late, you two, we should go back. He raised his hand and lightly tapped the air, and the black hole opened. Wait a minute, what happened just now? Even if our soul bodies can't satisfy Yi Fengjun, you don't have to really do anything to the plants. It's a curse, a curse. The black cavity closed while they were talking. Not long after they left, the branch of the Tree of Life on the windowsill suddenly opened a blood-red eye. My name is not Miss Tree of Life, husband. A voice that sounded very ethereal suddenly sounded and echoed in the office. Konoha Underground Base. Shisui, wearing a white hospital gown, was immersed in a culture container, and a dark purple sphere was floating above the container and kept rotating. That was the Hogyoku. Shisui was now in the second stage of evolution, and the bones on both sides of his cheeks had faded a little. It's almost reached the limit. Have you recorded the values? Yi Feng turned his head to look at Mrs. Makoto. Yes. Uchiha Makoto nodded first, then looked at the values she recorded and said, no matter the physical strength, spiritual pressure density or cell division progress, it is more than 4 times that of the first Arankar. Normal. This is the real ninja hollow. Yi Feng's mouth curved up and he laughed softly. It's not a simple ninja, nor a simple Arankar, but a ninja Arankar. Is there anything else in this? Kushina, who was watching, asked curiously. Because ninjas have chakra, their souls are much stronger than ordinary people. Yi Feng reached out and took back the Hogyoku floating above the culture container, and explained leisurely, our previous rough Arankar transformation was just to force the chakra and the hollow spirit to blend. Although the two exist in the ninja's body at the same time, they are actually distinct. Now that the tailed beast chakra is used to neutralize them, this boundary has finally been broken. Then can't you create gods in batches? Kushina took a breath and said with a surprised expression, catch all the other tailed beasts to provide you with chakra, and ruling the ninja world will be right in front of you. How can it be that easy? Yi Feng with a somewhat helpless expression, he said helplessly, this thing also depends on talent. Shisui has good enough talent. And only one type of tailed beast chakra is enough. It is useless to have more. It cannot be accumulated, it is just a neutralizing effect. It depends on talent. Mrs. Makoto frowned and said, then I may not be very good. I didn't have much talent when I was a ninja. Don't worry, the talents of the two of you are definitely beyond anyone else. Yifeng curved his mouth and said confidently, after being nourished by the soul-enriching pearl for so long, there should be no one in this ninja world whose soul is purer than yours. So we are also the 10 espadas. Kushina raised her eyebrows. Ah, since you have even made an Arrancar, don't you plan to make a 10 espadas? I don't care, I want to be the first 10 espadas. Quote. No, okay, as long as it makes you happy. That's about right, come on, give you a buff. Hugging Yifeng's neck, he offered his lips without hesitation. Boo, after a long time, the lips parted. Don't cook for yourself today. Let's go to the South Street Izakaya to try their water tofu. Kushina held Yifeng's cheeks with both hands and made a suggestion. Listen to me, you won't regret it. The water tofu there is really good. Mrs. Makoto nodded in agreement. Okay, since both ladies said so, Yifeng naturally wouldn't spoil the fun. The night gradually spread. The South Street of Konoha was brightly lit. After seeing too much of the current wave country, I suddenly feel that the prosperity of Konoha is just like that. Kushina in the Soul Pearl spoke softly, saying, even a commercial district like South Street seems to be missing something. Too old. Mrs. Makoto pondered for a moment and replied, the commercial district of Wave Country is all brand new, giving people a sense of prosperity. Konoha's words seem a bit stale. Once again, it proves that only we are the future of the ninja world. Kushina put her hands on her hips and laughed triumphantly. But you didn't contribute at all. It was Yifeng who led the people of Wave Country to do all the hard work. Mrs. Makoto looked at her with disdain. The little fool's contribution is my contribution. Husband and wife are one, right? You haven't married yet. Little fool, let's kick this woman out now. She can't talk at all. This kind of woman will definitely be a troublemaker in the backyard. You've learned to blow pillow talk before you've married. A wife like you is the real troublemaker. Listening to the interaction between the two wives, Yifeng was silent and didn't dare to make a sound. Don't look at what they say about being a wife or not, it's obvious that only he is the real brother. Ha, that's it. Yifeng saw a familiar figure outside the South Street Izakaya and was stunned. Teacher Tsunade quickly stepped forward and patted her shoulder. Humph. At this time, Tsunade suddenly turned around and punched him in the heart. Yifeng raised his right arm upwards and offset her punch. The other hand reached out and held her arm tightly to prevent her from attacking again. Tsunade-sensei, do you want to kill me? Oh, it's you, little brat. Tsunade. It seemed that she just realized it at this time, and her fair cheeks were stained with 2 blushes. I thought it was some blind guy who wanted to take advantage of me. So that's it. Of course it's like that, otherwise do you think I'm still taking revenge? This can only be said to be a matter of opinion. Yifeng smiled slightly, but did not argue. In that case, then the disciple will. Before he finished speaking, Tsunade put an arm on Yifeng's shoulder. Take me home. Yifeng was stunned and nodded. Okay. Carry me. Tsunade's whole body weight was pressed on Yifeng, and she said with half-closed eyes, I don't have the strength to walk now. Yifeng was silent for a moment, but he still bent down and carried the other person on his back. At this time, he could clearly feel the oppressive touch of the 2 lumps on his back. It might be a blessing for others, but for him it was just asking for trouble. How do you feel, little brat? Tsunade put her mouth close to Yifeng's ear and exhaled sweetly, I shouldn't be that heavy, right? Please try not to touch my skin, Teacher Tsunade. Yifeng took a breath and said solemnly, trust me, this is for your own good. Hey, what will happen if you touch me? Tsunade sneered and said disdainfully, I don't believe it. Can a little brat like you eat me? As she spoke, her lips gently kissed Yifeng's earlobe. This woman is so greedy. Mrs. Makoto was so angry that her face was almost red. Makoto-chan, calm down. Kushina didn't care. She stared at the scene with her eyes wide open. Quote. The passive skill was not triggered. Yifeng couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief and warned seriously, Teacher Tsunade, I'm not joking. If you want to have a wonderful night, it's better to Before he finished speaking, he felt a warm sensation on his earlobe. Oh, this time he was not so lucky. Tsunade snorted softly, and her whole body began to tremble. Her two arms tightly grasped the boy's neck, and her pupils rolled up. Yifeng also felt a little wet on his back at this time, but he couldn't put him down directly. Torture. This is really torture. After a while, the trembling gradually faded. Yifeng turned his face away, and said stiffly, Tsunade teacher, I reminded you. Don't talk, I'm still okay. Tsunade didn't even wait for him to finish, and directly put her face close to him and sealed his mouth. Tsunade's old house. Knock, knock, knock. A rhythmic knock on the door sounded. I'm coming, I'm coming. Shizune, wearing an apron, walked out of the kitchen and said helplessly, Tsunade-sama, did you forget to bring your key again today? She opened the door and was stunned. Good evening, senior sister Jingyan. Yifeng smiled and said gently, I sent teacher Tsunade back. Jingyan glanced at Tsunade, who seemed to have completely fallen asleep behind Yifeng, and seemed to finally react, and hurriedly said, Put down Lady Tsunade, let me take over. Yifeng clearly felt that Tsunade's body stiffened for a moment, and shook his head and said, No need, senior sister Jingyan, just tell me which room teacher Tsunade lives in. The first room on the second floor. Jingyan paused, and sighed helplessly, junior brother Yifeng doesn't want to wake up Lady Tsunade, so gentle. Unfortunately, as a teacher, Lady Tsunade did not set a good example. Not only did she get drunk outside like this, but she also had to let you, a young girl, carry her home. It's so rude. It's just a matter of convenience. Yifeng smiled softly and walked up the stairs with Tsunade on his back. Opening the door, Yifeng gently put Tsunade on the bed. Hey, kid. Just as he was about to leave, Tsunade grabbed the hem of his clothes and said in a daze, I just drank too much today, don't think too much. I know, remember to change your pants before going to bed. Yifeng said this and turned to go downstairs. Asshole, what stupid thing did I do? Just as he left, Tsunade's eyes suddenly opened. Grabbing the quilt to cover her face, she let out a cry of self-abandonment. This woman actually wants to be irresponsible. Mrs. Makoto's angry voice sounded in the soul-enhancing bead, saying, or is she drunk? She was sober. Big sister Tsunade also has to save face. Kushina spread her hands and said, she made her disciple unconscious more than a dozen times in one night. I'm afraid no one wants to face this kind of black history. It's just that she came up to him for pleasure and didn't want to let go of her mouth. According to the laws of the Land of Waves, this constitutes child abuse. Ha ha ha, Makoto-chan is really jealous. It's as if you're not jealous at all. I will be jealous, but this is nothing more than a way. Shin Nai sighed, but said helplessly, who makes our little man is the charm of the ninja world. Head, and I feel that the ambiguousness of others and Yifengjin is not very strong, or this Tsunade does not know why it is difficult to bear. You are the blood of Chinshu's family, one is the descendant of Uchiha, maybe this is the enemy. See Shinai guessing her chin. Can the words be used? It's also a bond. Believe in me, you may be a pair like the first generation of Naruto and Uchiha. Even Yifeng couldn't help grinning, and almost laughed out loud. As junior brother Yifeng going back, seeing the young man in white walking down the stairs, Jingyan came forward and said, I really trouble you this time. Hey, what's this? Halfway through the conversation, her eyes suddenly noticed that a large area behind Yifeng was wet. Not only that, but there was also a fishy and salty smell that entered her nose. Someone accidentally splashed fish soup on me when we were eating earlier. Yifeng explained calmly. So that's the case, I was wondering why it smelled like seafood. Jingyan smiled suddenly and suggested, why don't you take off your clothes first and I'll wash them for you. No need to bother, I can wash them myself. Yifeng shook his head and walked out of Tsunade's mansion. Goodbye, senior sister Jingyan. Well, have a good journey. Jingyan waved her hand and watched him walk onto the street. Until the other person's back disappeared, she murmured to herself, what a mature and sensible child, it would be better if he was a little older. Wow, are you moved? A voice suddenly sounded behind her. Hiss. Shizune was startled and turned around to find Tsunade standing behind her in a changed outfit. Tsunade-sama, aren't you asleep? Why did you change your clothes? My clothes are also stained with fish soup. I woke up from the smoke. Tsunade explained calmly. Compared to this, are you really attracted to that kid, Shizune? How could it be? Shizune blushed and waved her hands quickly, saying, junior brother Yifeng is only that old. If you really have a crush on him, it would be a blatant crime. Do you think age is a problem? Tsunade asked inexplicably. Isn't it? Shizune scratched her head. Tsunade was silent for a long time, and breathed a sigh of relief, saying, you are right. The age gap is indeed a big problem. Even for his future, you shouldn't get too involved. Future, get too involved. Shizune stared, confused. Nothing. Tsunade glanced at her, turned around and said, pack up your things these 2 days. We should leave Konoha. Leave, quote, I have already taught all my skills to others. Why would I stay here to retire? But, I have made up my mind. Don't tell anyone before we leave. After saying this, Tsunade went upstairs without looking back. Danzo's residence. Danzo-sama, you are looking for me. Yifeng, who had gone home to change clothes, stood opposite Danzo and said respectfully. Take a look at this. Danzo said with a gloomy face, took out a letter and threw it on the table. What do you think? Quote. Yifeng opened the letter and took a look, his expression was stunned. Elder Danzo, Shaolin Yifeng is a traitor hidden in Konoha. He colluded with hostile forces and attempted to destroy the prosperity and stability of Konoha. His heart is worthy of death. I am advising you, please Elder Danzo, please look into it. There are only a few words in the letter, but it can be seen that the writer hates Yifeng to the core. I don't have any ideas. Yifeng put down the letter and said calmly, just like what the letter said, please look into it, Lord Danzo. No need. Danzo sneered and said coldly, it's just my old subordinate who is trying to sow discord. His name is Aburame Ryoma. He lives in the 3rd district of East Street. Do you understand what I mean? I understand, Lord Danzo. Yifeng nodded decisively. Give him some respect, after all, he has been with me for many years. Quote. Danzo shook his head and sighed, jealousy is really a sharp knife. Is there no truly loyal person in Konoha except you and Chen? Look at that stupid Hiruzen. And those 2 lackeys, Koharu and Menyon, have ruined the foundation laid by the 1st and 2nd generations. I am really heartbroken. Oh my god, how on earth did you hold back from laughing? Kushina in the Soul Pearl felt like she was going crazy laughing, but Yifeng, who was opposite Danzo, remained expressionless, as if he agreed with his point of view. Lord Danzo, we still have a chance. That's right. Danzo's heartbroken expression faded, and he nodded solemnly, the future of Konoha is in my hands, and only I can lead Konoha to true prosperity. What's wrong with this guy? He drank so much. Kushina complained again. It seems that he is really deeply affected by the hollows. Mrs. Makoto shook her head speechlessly and sighed, it seems that he is a little confused when talking, and he is so arrogant. Even if there is no influence from the hollows, this guy is not very smart. Kushina sneered and said, his loyal subordinates were killed one by one. In the original Naruto, there was a trick of stabbing Susanoo with a kunai. Ha, that's really hard to hold. Mrs. Makoto couldn't help laughing. In the end, he sealed a bridge with his own life. You are worthy of being Danzo. Kushina said sarcastically. For this meeting with Orochimaru, I plan to change my strategy. Danzo naturally couldn't hear the contempt of the 2 ladies for him, and said lightly with his chin in his hand. Change strategy. Yifeng looked puzzled. That idiot Orochimaru has no idea that there is a spy loyal to me around him. Danzo snorted coldly, and said confidently, that guy has been hiding in the land of rice and has established a sound village. What Danzo-sama means is, no need to seek any cooperation, just kill Orochimaru when we meet. His research results must be stored in that small village, just occupy it directly. Danzo-sama is wise. At this time, in the underground laboratory of the Sound Village, Orochimaru stood in front of a culture container, looking at the monster with a hideous face inside thoughtfully. The whole body of this monster has been covered with white bones, and its eyes are full of tyranny and bloodthirstiness. Even if the body is firmly fixed in the container by the restraint device, it still has full aggressiveness. It's really surprising, he is still alive like this. Kabuto Yakushi, who was standing behind him, exclaimed. HMPH. Orochimaru chuckled and said lightly, "Do you think it is Karaki or this monster who is alive now?" "What's the difference, Lord Orochimaru?" Kabuto Yakushi said with confusion. "Karaki is a person with thoughts, and this monster has lost its human characteristics." Orochimaru licked his lips with his tongue and laughed coldly. "This is the side effect of the super ninja potion, Kabuto. Maybe one day, both of us will become like this." As he spoke, Orochimaru raised his regrown right arm. It was completely out of the human category, more like the claws of a beast. The long nails at the tip were like sharp blades, and no one would doubt its lethality and destructiveness. "That's a pity, I hope that day will come later." Kabuto Yakushi pushed his glasses and sighed. "Hope alone is useless." Orochimaru grinned and sneered. "People still have to rely on themselves, Kabuto." Click. Orochimaru pressed the red button of the culture container, and the protective glass cover and restraints opened. The monster that looked like a big lizard tore off the tube inserted in its body, opened its mouth full of fangs and pounced towards Orochimaru. Puff! Orochimaru's right arm directly pierced the opponent's heart, and the defensive ability of the white bone object was like paper in his hand. What a pity, another useless defective product. Orochimaru looked at the fallen body of the other party and shook his head and said, "Even if the dosage is increased, it is still not at the level of a Jonin. It should be limited talent." Pharmacist Kabuto handed him a towel and analyzed calmly. "I think so, Danzo would not send a truly talented ninja to us as an undercover." "Kabuto, do you think Danzo wants to cooperate with us sincerely?" Orochimaru took the towel and wiped his claws, with a playful expression. "It's probably impossible. His mind should have been seriously affected." Kabuto Yakushi shook his head and said lightly, "At this stage, he will unconsciously produce the desire to destroy and kill." "I think so too. But you still agreed. I want to see how far that old man has gone. You don't think I'm his opponent, do you?" "I see. It seems that my horizons are too narrow." "You still have a lot to learn, Kabuto," Orochimaru said, and his body stopped at another training ground, in front of the container. In the container was a purple-haired woman wearing a dark green robe, and her body seemed to be covered with a layer of cracked soil. Impure world reincarnation. Without a doubt, this was a real impure world reincarnation body. The milky white bone objects surrounded her body, but there was no intention of blending with her. "Is it still not working?" Orochimaru frowned and said in a hoarse voice, "It seems that the super ninja potion can't be used on the dead after all. Is my feeling wrong? He always thought that this thing should be more compatible with the dead. These milky white bone objects will have a great strengthening effect on the wavelength and activity of the soul." But when he was practicing it, he found that the two could not blend at all. "It's like something is missing." PFF. Orochimaru's experiment still didn't succeed. In the underground base of Konoha, Kushina took in Orochimaru's miserable expression and laughed gloatingly. "You're missing the Hogyoku, Lord Orochimaru. He can't hear you calling him here." Mrs. Masaka glanced at her best friend. "What does it matter? I'm happy." Kushina smiled happily and retracted her gaze from the monitor screen. "The little fool is still fiddling with that thing." "Well, Yifeng said he didn't accept it." Mrs. Masaka nodded. "Ha ha ha, you have a day too." Kushina hugged Yifeng, who was sitting at the desk, and teased with a smile, "Little friend, are you uncomfortable?" Yifeng ignored her and concentrated on fiddling with the mysterious intercom in his hand. He really didn't accept it. He didn't believe that this Gooba smartphone didn't even have a power button, so wouldn't he become a grudge? After completing that shameless optional task, he was given a model phone. 10 minutes later, Yifeng gave up struggling. He punched the screen of the mysterious intercom with a fist, his lips trembling with anger. "Tear it up." Ding. With a slight sound, the screen lit up. "Password approved. Matching a suitable call partner for you. Question mark, question mark, question mark." Looking at the flashing text, Yifeng, Makoto, and Kushina were stunned at the same time, their eyes widened. Password. So a password is still needed. And what kind of hell is this password? Can ordinary people think of it? A few days later, the labor camp mine in Wave Country. "Obito, are you really not going to leave here?" Black Zetsu, who was possessed by White Zetsu, looked at Obito, who was working hard to carry the big stone, and said in a bewitching tone, "Think about our Moon Eye plan, and then think about it. Shut up. Obito looked at it coldly and said, don't mention her name again. I really didn't send that corpse away. Black Zetsu was silent for a moment, and explained with a solemn expression, why don't you believe me? It's really not you, I sent it myself. Obito sneered. Mr. Zetsu, why don't you do more work if you have this physical strength? Hoshigaki Kisame, who was wearing a sleeveless short shirt and sweating profusely, suggested, the efficiency is too low to reduce the working hours. You have no right to speak here. Black Zetsu turned his eyes to him, and his face became visibly angry. Who wants to work as a laborer for that Shaolin Yifeng? Only you, an idiot, enjoy it. It seems that Mr. Zetsu has a big prejudice against me. Kisame has always been good-tempered when facing the same camp, not to mention that Black Zetsu was right. He thinks doing these physical jobs is really interesting. Ha, you're right, Black Zetsu admitted without hesitation. It is very annoyed when it sees the shark face in front of it. Not only did he instigate Obito to lie down, but he also often made sarcastic remarks to himself. The most important thing is that this guy was promoted to team leader. Why, what is this shark face? He is just a pawn of Obito. Why can he become the team leader and ride on his head? What are you doing here arguing? Two guards in white uniforms were attracted and frowned. Sir, I report it. White Zetsu's original body suddenly raised his hand and said, 9988 attached to me wants to escape from prison. White Zetsu, you. Black Zetsu was caught off guard by this betrayal and was completely stunned. I've been fed up with you for the past 2 days. White Zetsu's original body bared his teeth and said bitterly, everyone is in prison, why am I the only one working? You attach to me every day and do nothing but talk. I'm doing this for mom. Stop it, what's your identity now? Why are you still thinking about those shitty things? 9988, please come with us. The two guards threw out a hook to pull Black Zetsu out of the possession state and took it back to the prison area. In the office of the leader of the Wave Country. Humph, it seems that Black Zetsu Takashi's prison escape is not very successful. Kushina leaned back on the sofa, her 2 little feet dangling back and forth on Yifeng's thighs. It ended before it even started. That's not normal. Mrs. Masaka put her arms on Yifeng's shoulders and rested her chin on his head. Obito has already broken up with him, he will definitely not listen to it anymore. It's boring, I'm still looking forward to some small twists and turns. Kushina pouted and tapped Yifeng's waist with her toes. Little, aren't you sad at all that Tsunade is gone? What's sad? It's not like you won't see her again. Yifeng gently fiddled with the tree of life in front of him and smiled, they will come back for the Chunin exam next year. I feel like she's hiding from you. Kushina whispered. Yifeng paused and picked up the tree of life and put it on the windowsill. It's good this way, so that we won't become enemies when we meet again. Why don't you pull her into our camp? If it were you, you should be able to do this, right? Mrs. Masaka asked hesitantly. Being an enemy of Konoha is against her heart. A forced melon is not sweet. Yifeng said calmly. Kushina and Makoto, the 2 wives, no longer have any sense of belonging to Konoha, and they have no psychological burden even if they are enemies of Konoha. Tsunade is different. Although she said angry words like, never return to the village, and, those who want to be Hokage are fools, her feelings for Konoha in her heart are even greater than those of the F4's high-level officials. And what Yifeng is going to do is destined to be an enemy of the current Konoha, and he doesn't want Tsunade to be embarrassed on both sides. Not meeting for the time being is the best result at present. Alas, Kushina did not persuade him anymore. She looked at her little man's actions and changed the subject. Speaking of which, why did you move it out at night? Aren't plants supposed to bask in the sun for photosynthesis? Is it useful to bask in the moonlight? It is useful. I found that it is more useful to bask in the moonlight than in the sun. Yifeng smiled and nodded, saying, the breath of life that escapes cannot deceive people. It is obviously more active under the moon. What a weird thing. Kushina endured. He kept complaining, saying, all the things you got after completing the curse are weird. And that smartphone. Did you match anyone? No. Yifeng wanted to curse when he talked about this. He was expecting the result of the match that day, wanting to see what kind of person the other party was. As a result, he waited for a whole night, and the screen stayed on the interface of matching a suitable call partner for you, spinning in circles. It's been almost 10 days, what kind of hell can't find a person after 10 days of matching? Beep, beep. The communicator on the desk sounded and made a light sound. Yi Feng pressed the connect button, and the beautiful face of Ms. Wei Yu appeared on the screen. Master Leader, Elder Danzo has arrived at the border of the river country. Okay, act according to the plan. The river country. A small country located between the two major countries of fire and wind, named after its many rivers. Danzo was standing on the bank of the Sanggu River in the center of the country of rivers, looking up at the crescent moon in the sky. The moonlight shone, and the river water sparkled. The quiet night gave people a refreshing feeling. Danzo's mind also regained some calmness at this time, and he began to think about issues he had never considered before. Is it true or false that the use of super ninja potions will make people permanently lose their minds? Is there any way to cure and relieve it? Should he attack Orochimaru at this time? Oh, at this moment, a slightly hoarse voice suddenly sounded, interrupting his thoughts. I didn't expect that Elder Danzo would have such leisure and elegance, and watch the moon here alone. Danzo turned slowly, and Orochimaru with long hair draped over his shoulders came into view. The Konoha rebel smiled playfully, and his light golden vertical pupils stared at him like a venomous snake. Orochimaru, you are late. Danzo said calmly. I'm so sorry, Elder Danzo. Orochimaru licked his lips and grinned, are you going to punish me for this? I'll give you a chance, Orochimaru. Danzo narrowed his eyes and said coldly, hand over your latest research results on super ninja potions and return to my service. What if I refuse? Orochimaru sneered. Swish. Danzo rushed forward, stretched out his hand and grabbed Orochimaru's neck and pushed him to the ground, holding a kunai against his throat. You can't refuse me. I see. Even though he was pressed down by Danzo, Orochimaru did not panic at all, and smiled slightly. Elder Danzo's medicine is specialized in speed, it's really fast. You can still laugh at this time. Danzo's kunai was pressed against the skin of Orochimaru's neck, and with a little force, it could penetrate his throat. Orochimaru, sometimes you really don't know how to live or die. I don't have specialized power, nor do I have that kind of strange position. Orochimaru said to himself, and his body suddenly straightened up. Puff. As expected, the kunai pierced his throat, and bright red blood splashed all over his face. Danzo did not expect Orochimaru to do such a suicidal operation, and his expression was stunned. Orochimaru stood up again, and the wound on his throat was visibly healed quickly. This is. Danzo's eyes widened, his face full of disbelief. It seems that Elder Danzo only knows about speed specialization. Hasn't he seen other abilities? Orochimaru raised his eyebrows and said playfully, this is really surprising. What surprise? Nothing. Orochimaru lied. In fact, the surprise he was referring to was the bottle of super ninja potion that Yifeng had shown him earlier. Its purity is much higher than what he has extracted now. It must have been the result of countless repeated experiments. In his opinion, Shaolin Yifeng is Danzo's confidant. Since he has such a potion, Danzo's research and development of the potion is probably better than his own. But now looking at Danzo in front of him, he feels that he seems to have thought too much. This guy's understanding of the super ninja plan is probably extremely limited. In other words, Shaolin Yifeng's bottle of super ninja potion is not Danzo's research result at all. Interesting. That kid is probably hiding deeper than he thought. Orochimaru, are you kidding me? Danzo frowned and said coldly. It's not me who's kidding you, Elder Danzo. Orochimaru smiled maliciously, and said with a curved corner of his mouth, it seems that there is no real confidant in your root organization. Asshole, it's not your turn to judge my affairs. The bandages on Danzo's head and arms were unsealed, revealing milky white bone. Puff. But before he could attack, a sharp blade suddenly pierced his back. What? Danzo turned around in a daze, and what came into his sight was Chen wearing a monkey face mask. You guy. Look, it's really pitiful. Orochimaru crossed his arms and said with a smile, even the guards you are proud of have been bribed by me, but you don't know it at all. Chen, you traitor. Danzo stretched out his right arm with difficulty, and put his index and middle fingers together. Die together with me. It was obvious that he wanted to use some secret technique. But after more than 10 seconds, there was no change on the scene. I'm sorry, Master Danzo. Wei Yu, wearing a monkey mask, said indifferently, without sadness or joy, your inner force symbol seal technique was actually destroyed by me last night. Danzo opened his chest in disbelief, and the lines engraved on it had indeed disappeared completely. He couldn't understand. How did this guy do it? Do you have any last words at this point, Elder Danzo? Orochimaru asked with a smile. Orochimaru, Chen, I wish you two a bad death. Danzo said viciously. What an ugly word. Orochimaru shook his head and turned around. Since you are the loser, accept your failure calmly, so that I may still look up to you. Kill him, Chen. Yes, Master Orochimaru. Wei Yu nodded respectfully and raised the long sword in his hand. Swish. Blood splattered, and Orochimaru knelt on the ground with a dull face. Kabuto Yakushi, wearing round-framed glasses, appeared in front of him with a relaxed smile on his face and said, Good evening, Lord Orochimaru. Please don't blame me for showing up without permission. Kabuto, you. Orochimaru's eyes widened, and he said in shock and anger, How dare you betray me? Don't be too impatient, Lord Orochimaru. Kabuto Yakushi advised kindly, saying, My knife will prevent your super speed regeneration. Being too impatient will make you bleed faster. Orochimaru looked at the knife mark on his chest, and it was still bleeding. This made his eyes even more unbelievable, and he gritted his teeth and said, You traitor, you planned all this a long time ago. Why? Kabuto didn't betray, can you please not blame him too much? Gentle's voice sounded, and a young man in white appeared gracefully in the field. With a slight smile on his face, he said, Senior Orochimaru. Yifeng, Zhaolin Yifeng, is that you? Danzo and Orochimaru both widened their eyes at the same time, with incredible expressions on their faces. Good evening, Lord Danzo, Senior Orochimaru. Yifeng greeted the two of them politely, and Wei Yu and Kabuto walked behind him consciously. At this time, Wei Yu had restored his original appearance, which made Danzo stunned again. You are. Ah, have you been discovered? Yifeng smiled softly, and said with a gentle expression, The person who has been guarding you all this time is actually Ms. Wei Yu, Lord Danzo. What? Danzo took a breath and gritted his teeth and said, How is this possible? The sky is actually colorless. The lenses on Yifeng's face reflected silver light, but his whole body seemed to blend into the darkness. It didn't deceive you, you just deceived yourself with your own eyes. Asshole, you are the most hidden traitor. Danzo was so angry that his face turned red, and he cursed, You deceived the whole Konoha. It's a very interesting joke, Danzo-sama. Yifeng said condescendingly with a mocking look on his face. I don't think I have ever asked you to believe me. Everything is your own decision, right? Yamanaka Feng and Aburame Ryoma, you personally ordered me to kill them. You. Danzo was choked and a mouthful of blood was blocked in his chest. Zhaolin Yifeng, your goal is also the super ninja potion, right? Orochimaru asked coldly. As expected of you, you are a senior Orochimaru, you have a sharp intuition. Yifeng smiled and praised. Hehe. Orochimaru didn't want to talk, and he was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. If you really have a sharp intuition, you can still be calculated by this kid. This fool was obviously mocking him, and he had no way to refute him. The Super Ninja Project is very interesting, but unfortunately, as a student of the ninja school, I don't have suitable experimental conditions. Yifeng smiled and said in a gentle voice, Thanks to the help of the two of you, my dream has been realized. Your ideal. Danzo could no longer bear it, and trembled all over as he angrily shouted, You are a scum who betrayed Konoha, what ideals are you qualified to talk about? You are wrong again, Lord Danzo. Yifeng smiled softly and said, You killed the Anbu guarding you and left Konoha. Now the real traitor is you. I didn't kill them at all. Danzo argued. If the two of us stand in front of Lord Hokage and confront each other, do you think he will believe me or you? Yifeng asked back. You fool. Danzo's forehead was bulging with veins. He understood that this dog Chusheng was planning to frame him. More importantly, he really couldn't explain it at this time. Hehe, what a wonderful layout. Orochimaru suddenly spoke and sneered. Zhaolin Yifeng, I'm afraid you have been waiting for this moment since you were selected by Elder Danzo to join the Root organization. Not so. Yifeng smiled and shook his head. Oh, are you saying that you just happened to be there? Orochimaru said with a sneer on his face. I actually knew a long time ago that Danzo-sama values some talented ninjas very much and will do everything he can to bring them into the root organization. Yifeng explained. Just 2 months ago, I did something insignificant in the land of waves and entered Danzo-sama's sight. Danzo took a breath and said in surprise, You want to say. So it's not that Danzo-sama chose me, but I chose Danzo-sama. Yifeng spit out his lips and said everything, including the evidence of your crime in Sarutobi Hiruzen's hands, I provided it. Zhaolin Yifeng, you are. Danzo understood everything. He was played like a monkey by this kid from the beginning to the end. No, it's not just him, Danzo. Including Hiruzen, Koharu and Menyon, these idiots, they were also played around by the other party. Horrible. Danzo finally understood how scary this kid was at this time. Interesting, really interesting. Orochimaru grinned and sneered, this ninja world has been silent for decades, and today there is a guy like you. Senior Orochimaru, I admire your research level. Yifeng looked at him and smiled, it's a pity that you got it wrong from the beginning. Oh, I got it wrong. Orochimaru frowned, and his expression was obviously very dissatisfied. He can admit that he was played like a dog by the other party, and he is not an opponent in conspiracy and trickery. But in terms of scientific research, he is confident that he is definitely not inferior to anyone. That unique oppressive force field is not an obstacle, that is the real right way. Yifeng did not hide it, and said very frankly, its name is spiritual pressure. Spiritual pressure. If you continue to develop it, maybe today will usher in a different ending. How could you know? Orochimaru's expression was moved, and his face was full of disbelief. The discovery of that unique force field was an unintentional act of his. Kabuto Yakushi was not around at the time. How did he know about it? Every research data and every research process of you and Danzo are within my sight. Yifeng curled his lips and smiled slightly, that's why I want to thank you too. I am very happy to work with you too. Asshole, you shameful traitor. Danzo gritted his teeth, and his whole face became distorted. Old man will do it myself. Angry, strong anger filled Danzo's heart, so much so that he struggled to get up briefly. He really didn't expect that the subordinate in front of him, who was trusted by him as a disciple, was actually a dog who played with people's hearts. Danzo, who has always been in control of others, finally felt the taste of being arbitrarily dominated by others. It's very uncomfortable. The extreme discomfort turned into a surging tide of resentment at this moment. I want to tear the boy in front of me to pieces and grind his whole body into meat paste. Visibly, Danzo's eyes turned into beast forms. Puff! A mouthful of white foam suddenly spurted out of his mouth, and the milky white bone substance-like flowing life instantly covered his entire cheek and gradually spread to his body. This is... Orochimaru stared, gasped and said, how can the beast form be so fast? Beast transformation. Yifeng shook his head and said lightly, if it is done in the right way, it should be called virtualization. Breaking the upper limit of the ninja's illusion and gaining a new power. What an ugly posture. Elder Danzo must not like his current appearance. Orochimaru sneered. At this time, Danzo's body was covered with sharp barbs, and his limbs had claws. It looked like a humanoid howl pig, both eyes have lost their human consciousness. I'm really sorry, Senior Orochimaru. Yifeng looked at him meaningfully and said, you will become like this soon. Are you kidding me? My beast transformation progress. Before Orochimaru finished speaking, he suddenly spurted out a mouthful of white foam. What? How could this happen? Indeed. Yifeng smiled and nodded, explaining, according to the normal progress, it will take at least 2 months for you to complete this hollow form. But in order to thank you and Boss Danzo for your help, I helped you speed up the process in advance. Orochimaru was so angry that he was about to smoke. How can there be a way to thank others in this world? Senior Orochimaru, do you still remember your number 9 experimental subject? Yifeng curled his lips and said sarcastically, its abnormal reaction was actually given to you by me. In other words, I wanted you to have super fast regeneration ability from the beginning. Why? Orochimaru tried to stay calm. Of course, only in this way can I get more accurate values from you. Yifeng grinned and said slowly. Shaolin Yifeng, you are so. Orochimaru broke through the defense instantly, and was about to pounce on the boy opposite with his fangs and claws. But just as he had this thought, the white bone mask had already covered his entire face. As I thought, violent emotional fluctuations will indeed make the progress of hollowing faster. Yifeng looked at Orochimaru's appearance at this time, just like Orochimaru observing his experimental subjects in the past. His words and actions obviously made Orochimaru, whose righteousness was broken, fall further into the abyss. With his last breath, he gritted his teeth and said, Shaolin Yifeng, I wish you a miserable death. Since you are a loser, accept your failure calmly, then I may still look up to you. Yifeng retorted with his words, waved his hand and said, Goodbye, Elder Danzo, Senior Orochimaru. You are really great experimental materials. Roar. In response to him, Orochimaru roared like an animal, startling a flock of birds in the forest. Konoha, Hokage's office. Sarutobi Hiruzen, holding a pipe in his mouth, said nothing with a gloomy face. There is nothing to say now, Danzo is completely crazy. Udatane Kaharu, who was standing on his left, said angrily with a cold expression, Dare to kill the Anbu directly under the Hokage and leave the village, this behavior is the biggest betrayal of Konoha. Calm down, Kaharu. Mito Kato-en tried to calm his friend's emotions and whispered, maybe Danzo did this for a reason. Tell me the reason. Udatane Kaharu didn't buy it at all, and looked at him sideways and said, Is there someone forcing him to kill people and force him to defect? Who is so powerful, are you Hiruzen? Mito Kato-en was immediately speechless, and looked at Sarutobi Hiruzen for help. Be patient. Sarutobi Hiruzen took a breath and said, I have sent a capable ninja to investigate his residence. Dong dong dong. A rhythmic knock on the door sounded. Come in, Yifeng. Yes. Yifeng, wearing a white coat, walked into the door and first greeted everyone present politely, then said solemnly, Hokage-sama, we have found out where Elder Danzo is. He is no longer an elder, so there is no need to use honorifics. Udatane Kaharu reminded. Tell me what you found. Sarutobi Hiruzen rubbed his brows with a headache and spoke lightly. Choose. Yifeng was about to produce evidence of Danzo and Orochimaru's conspiracy, but the option interface suddenly popped up at this time. 1. Produce the evidence of the photo of Orochimaru with Danzo after using the conscience enlargement surgery. 2. Produce the evidence of the photo of Danzo with Orochimaru after using the conscience enlargement surgery. Yifeng's mouth twitched slightly. There is no difference in the actual effect of these two options, right? In terms of the degree of eye-catching, they are basically the same. But compared to them, Ant Snake is more popular. Yifeng made a choice in his heart and took out a photo and handed it to Sarutobi Hiruzen in front of him. Stunned, looking at the conscience exaggerated to the point of being almost inhuman in the photo, Sarutobi Hiruzen's eyes widened. They actually. Not to mention him, even Udatane Kaharu and Mitomen standing next to him couldn't help but gasp at this time. It's no wonder they behaved like this, it's really that the visual effect of this photo is too shocking. The conscience of Orochimaru in the photo is not only very big, but also wearing a very avant-garde swimsuit. Large areas of white skin are exposed to the air. If the head of this thing is removed, it can make old guys in their 40s stand at attention instantly. Danzo, who was hugged by Orochimaru, was only wearing a pair of flowered shorts, and his neck and face were covered with kiss marks. I didn't expect that these two people would get together in this way. Mitomen Yan took off his glasses tremblingly and muttered, It turns out that Danzo's previous plan to increase the conscience of all men in the ninja world has already produced experimental results. Not to mention the shock brought by this photo, it is not a good thing for these two people to get together. Udatane Kaharu looked worried and said in a low voice, Hiratsune, issue a wanted order. We can't let Danzo continue to let him go. He has completely betrayed our ideals now. Congratulations on obtaining 40 years of chakra energy. Looking at the reward prompt that popped up, Yifeng didn't care about the discussion of these Konoha high-level officials at all, and just turned around and left the Hokage's office. Return to the underground base. Yifeng looked at the two ladies soaked in the container in front of him, and his face showed a rare worry. They were transforming into Arankars. The milky white bone material wrapped their entire bodies, and the tyrannical spiritual pressure continued to surge in the entire space. Even though Yifeng had set up a powerful barrier in advance, he still couldn't suppress the spread of these two spiritual pressures. You can imagine, once they succeed in becoming Arrancar, what a terrifying existence they will be. Even Shisui, the strongest under Yifeng, is far inferior to him. It's just that the process of becoming Arrancar is very painful. The two ladies have to face the pain, sadness, hatred, and resentment in their hearts. Only by surviving these countless negative emotions can they be truly sublimated. This is what Yifeng is worried about. Although he knows that the two ladies are very strong in their hearts, he still worries about whether there will be any accidents. There is nothing more so than this. These two ladies are not only his close objects, but also truly like family members. It is they who really make him feel at home in this ninja world. Gurgle, gurgle. The milky white vanity substance in the container is still surging, condensed into two huge cocoons, wrapping up Kushina and Makoto layer by layer. Yifeng's expression was also extremely solemn at this time, and he didn't care about the beep-beep sound of the communication on his wrist. After an unknown period of time, the two cocoons finally took shape. Yifeng threw out the purple broken jade in his palm, and the terrifying spiritual pressure poured into his body as if the sky was falling and the earth was collapsing. Snap! The barrier was overwhelmed and collapsed directly. Crack! The cocoon also began to crack, and two pretty and flawless faces appeared. Then the neck, collarbone, torso, limbs and two pairs of smooth and white jade feet. Bang! The isolation cover of the container opened. Congratulations! Before Yifeng finished speaking, two figures, one red and one black, rushed forward and hugged him tightly. This time it was no longer a soul body with little sense of participation, but a real flesh and blood body. Soft, fragrant, and warm, people can't help but indulge in it. Congratulations to both of you for your new life. After a long time, Yifeng finished this sentence. Swish. The black and white gauze skirts were put on the two ladies respectively, and their flesh and blood bodies matched with these skirts made them look more charming. Tisk, you acted on your own initiative. Kushina pulled the collar and said meaningfully, when we first met, you didn't let me put clothes on, but now I don't want to wear them, but you insist on putting them on. It's not a good influence. Yifeng explained with an awkward smile. There are only 3 of us here, what influence are you talking about? Kushina raised her eyebrows and said suddenly, oh, sister understands. A little fool has the intention but not the ability. It's so pitiful. Big sister can really reward you now, but you can't do it. What a mockery. Yifeng couldn't help but start to jump in the corners of his eyes. Kushina, you should be more restrained after you have just completed the Arrancar. Mrs. Makoto glanced at her best friend and whispered, we are now flesh and blood. Yifeng still has many ways to deal with us if he really wants to. You don't want to become a weakling like Tsunade after you have just become an Arrancar, do you? HMPH, I'm afraid. Kushina took the opportunity to kiss Yifeng's lips without hesitation. They separated again, and a crystal thread connected them. What? It's still useless. Kushina's cheeks were slightly red, but her tone was quite annoyed. Are Arrancars not considered living beings? It shouldn't be possible, Mrs. Makoto said, and also moved her face closer to try. Hiss. Her expression paused, and her body couldn't help but tremble. Ha 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 ha, someone has been fooled. Kushina laughed loudly, with a face full of gloating. Iwagakure village. Wow, this thing is really big. Looking at the monster standing in the middle of the underground training ground with its face covered with white bones, the girl showed an amazed expression on her face. But it's so ugly, there's no artistic quality at all. The blonde boy standing next to her frowned and looked at Onoki behind him and said, old man, what do you want to do with this thing? Humph, of course it's to give that old man Sarutobi Hiruzen a little surprise next year. Onoki raised his head and laughed coldly, this is the secret weapon of our village. Don't tell anyone for the time being. To deal with Konoha, I can do it alone. There's no need to do these things. The blonde boy looked dissatisfied and gloomy. You are still too young, Deidara. Onoki shook his head and said lightly, Konoha is not as simple as you think. I heard that Konoha also has an incredible genius this time. His name seems to be Zhaolin Yifeng. The black-haired girl blinked and said, you're right, Kuretsuchi. Onoki nodded solemnly and sighed. According to reliable intelligence from our Anbu, Sarutobi Hiruzen even recalled Tsunade, who had been in seclusion for a long time, in order to train this genius. Tisk, what a shit genius. Deidara sneered and snorted, just wait and see, old man. When I meet him, I will definitely blow that guy up so badly that even a dog won't recognize him. Don't forget our real goal, Deidara. Kuretsuchi looked at him solemnly. What's the relationship? Is there a conflict between the two? Deidara snorted and grinned, and don't act like an elder in front of me, it's disgusting. Deidara, you guy. Kuretsuchi was so angry that veins on his forehead jumped. Okay. Onoki had a gloomy face and stopped the daily conflict between the two. You guys go down first, take this time to have a good rest. When the spring comes next year, we will fight Konoha to the death. HMPH. The boy and the girl snorted at the same time and turned to leave the training ground. Only Onoki was left standing alone in front of the stone statue of the first Tsuchikage, muttering, Uchiha Madara, did you ever think that our Iwagakure would destroy Konoha one day? Konoha, underground base. All the classmates gathered here, carefully studying the list on the round table. Is even the Kurigakure going to send people to this Chunin exam? Shikamaru held his chin with his hand, frowned and said, there are actually quite a few famous ninjas in there, it seems that they really want to win. Cheating, this is cheating. Naruto said loudly. Keep your voice down, idiot. Sasuke glanced at him and said lightly, if we really want to talk about cheating, Konoha who let Yifeng play is the real cheating. Indeed, Shikamaru nodded and sighed. Others can only blow up a small fish pond at most, but Yifeng's appearance has upgraded the fish pond to the stage of the abyss of hell. Zhaolin Yifeng, is he really that strong? A slightly confused voice suddenly sounded. It was the boy with long black hair standing in the corner. His face was slightly indifferent, and his gray-white pupils stared at Shikamaru. Hyuga Neji. This senior who was one grade higher than them joined them this afternoon. Hinata took the initiative to invite him and gave him a Ninja World reform plan. After reading it, Neji was shocked. Especially the analysis of the Ninja Clan in the book, which really won Neji's heart. Just like the other people at the class reunion, Neji was shocked when he first entered this base. Zhaolin Yifeng was just a student younger than himself, but he secretly did something so shocking that he dared not even think about it. In comparison, Neji felt that his reputation as a genius was a joke. Admiration. He really admired Zhaolin Yifeng, who had set up such a big secret base under the noses of Konoha's high-level officials. He admitted that this guy's wisdom, planning ability, and means of doing things were far superior to his. But now it sounds like the other party is not only wise in planning, but also has monster-level strength. You just completed the actual combat exercise with us. What do you think of Brother Shisui's strength? Shikamaru looked at him and asked with a smile. Unfathomable. Hyuga Neji made a fair evaluation. They faced Shisui at the same time, but they didn't even touch the corner of each other's clothes. But even so, Shisui could point out their respective strengths and weaknesses. This gap is obviously at the level of dimensions. They are afraid that they will not even see a speck of dust in Shisui's eyes, not even a dust. In fact, when Shisui was practicing with us, he had suppressed 99% of his spiritual pressure. Shikamaru took a breath and said softly. Spiritual pressure. Hyuga Neji raised his eyebrows. You can understand it as chakra. Sasuke explained calmly, or to put it more bluntly, when Shisui was with our captain, he only used 1% of his real strength. Actually, it's like this. Hyuga Neji couldn't help but gasp. He believed that his current strength was not much worse than that of a formal ninja, and the other students in these reunions were obviously stronger than him. But even so, facing Shisui, who only had 1% of his strength, there was still a huge gap between heaven and earth. Even the Hokage, I'm afraid he wouldn't be that strong, right? According to Brother Shisui, even with his strength, he is only ranked third among the created Arankar. Shikamaru spoke again, saying, then Yifeng, as the creator of the Arankar, would not be much weaker than them, right? This. Hyuga Neji swallowed his saliva and understood a little. Brother Shisui is the third of the 10 Espadas. I just saw the number on his neck. Haruno Sakura tapped her chin and said with confusion, I am curious, who are the two stronger than Brother Shisui? It's hard to say, maybe a monster with 3 heads and 6 arms, a green face and fangs. Naruto made a guess. Fruit is here, everyone. Kushina with red hair appeared in front of everyone and placed the fruit plate in her hand on the round table in front of everyone. The whole audience was silent. Everyone looked at the pretty red-haired lady and did not dare to say a word. Mom, Mom, only Naruto called out tentatively. Good son. Kushina reached out and touched his head, with an inexplicable expression, I haven't seen you for many years. Mom will go home tonight and have a good talk with you. At this time, everyone saw the conspicuous one on the back of the red-haired lady's hand. Everyone was silent again. The next morning, Yifeng returned to the ninja school he had not seen for a long time. As soon as he entered the classroom, he saw Naruto, with a swollen nose and eyes, sitting in his seat with his head down. Shikamaru patted his shoulder and comforted him softly. Good morning. Yifeng walked up to greet the two. Good morning, you actually came to school. Shikamaru stared in disbelief, this is really strange. Anyway, my current status in Konoha is still a student. Yifeng spread his hands. You were really exaggerating. Naruto couldn't help but complain, and said with a grin, Konoha is blessed to have a student like you. As he spoke, students walked into the classroom one after another. Yifeng-kun. Ino looked at the boy wearing glasses in the back row and his eyes suddenly lit up, and he walked forward quickly. Are you actually here for class today? Good morning, Yifeng-kun. Sakura also smiled and greeted. Good morning, both of you. Yifeng smiled and waved his hand, saying, it's been many days since we last met in the classroom, right? What do you mean many days? It's been almost 2 months. Ino wanted to get close to Yifeng, but considering the bad influence in the classroom, she had to give up for the time being. Today is my last class here, please take care of me. Yifeng said softly. The atmosphere suddenly became solemn. Shikamaru raised his eyebrows and whispered, have you decided? Yes, Lord Hokage plans to let me intern in the Anbu during this period. Yifeng replied with a smile. That old man is really good at going back on his word. Naruto snorted coldly and said angrily, we had already agreed that you could become a ninja after the semester was over. Why are you so anxious now? Don't blame me too much, Naruto. Shikamaru shook his head and said softly, Lord Hokage just wants Yifeng to be able to stand on his own as soon as possible and is ready to really start training him as a successor. Unfortunately, our Yifeng doesn't care about Hokage. Ino smiled sweetly. It's hard to imagine. She used to admire Hokage and thought it was the most respectable position in Konoha. But now, all the members of the Alumni Association, including Ino, don't care much about it. Actually, I still care a little bit. Yifeng smiled and said, the 5th Hokage must be my teacher Tsunade, and then Naruto will inherit her position. Me. Naruto pointed at his nose and shook his head. No, I will be a member of the Land of Waves in the future. If I continue to stay in Konoha, my mother will break my legs. Hiss, is your mother so scary? Sakura took a breath and said. Bai ni shang shang de hai yao ke pa, ying zhang, ming ren ru la ru zi ji de lien, my kandao, ba kan ta y biao zhang de nami piao liang, shi ji ne a shi yi tu ren xing shang shou, ni kan wo xian zai de lien, mian dui duo nian bujian de er zi ta ju shi j mi lai tang I woda. Ming ren, yu xie wa zui hao bu yao luan shuo, yi feng pai la pai ta de jian bang, feng quang shi yan se dao, ni xian zai j kan zhuang nan dao mei yu ji fen ju yu zi ku zai li mi and mi. Ping xian mi shuo wo ju yu zi ku, wo yu bu ji dao ta shi po mian de number 1, ming ren bu shuang de pai la pai zui, yi ben zheng jing dao. Wo gao su ni yi feng, ni xian zai wan quan ju shi bei ta biao shang ge pian la, dang ni men na tien zhen yao jie hun, wei dui wei bei zo de hen can. Wo kan ni yi jing yu la ku si ji dao, yi feng bai shang zui xian ru xian mo, ta yi jing ting dao yun ling zu li ju shen nai jin wo quan tu de sheng yin la, ming ren jie hai zi zai zuo si j feng mian yi shi ge tian kai. Kushina, calm down. Mrs. Makoto looked at this scene and couldn't help but persuade her. Naruto is just a child, it's normal that he doesn't understand this aspect. Do you know why I beat him last night? Kushina said in a low voice. Didn't he say yesterday that you have a green face and fangs, 3 heads and 6 arms? Mrs. Makoto asked in confusion. That's just a small part of it. Kushina took a breath and said lightly, the real reason is that I found a pile of unsightly comic books under his bed. Ah, Mrs. Makoto was stunned for a moment, and said hesitantly, it's not a big deal for children of this age to read such books, right? Think about it, the relationship between them and Yifeng is not as simple as reading books. For now, just wait for Yifeng to reach the age to fight directly. What if it's between men and men? Kushina said with a gloomy face. What? Mrs. Makoto finally changed color. Even in the gaps between these comic books, I saw photos of your son in women's clothing. Kushina issued a critical attack. Crack. Mrs. Makoto was stunned and petrified instantly. Not to mention her, even Yifeng was also struck by lightning. Naruto actually hid Sasuke's female photos in the comic book. What the hell is this operation? Naruto in the original book does not have this tendency. Sister, are you mistaken? Where did Naruto get Sasuke's female photos? Yifeng asked in a low voice. There were so many people present during the grade competition. Is it strange that he took the opportunity to take 1 or 2 photos? Kushina put her hands on her waist and said angrily, that photo was won by someone else playing cards. This. Yifeng didn't know what to say for a while. In the end, it's still your fault. Kushina took a breath and said, if you hadn't suddenly come to the grade competition, Naruto wouldn't have opened the door to the new world. Okay, I'll find time to guide him. Yifeng touched his nose and laughed awkwardly. Buzz buzz buzz. There was a sudden vibration in his pocket. Yifeng was stunned and took out the mysterious communicator. We have matched you with a suitable friend. Looking at the message popping up on the screen, Yifeng was stunned. Ha, we actually matched. It's been more than a month, right? The two ladies also saw this scene and cast their eyes over. Do you want to start the conversation? Yifeng did not hesitate and decisively clicked, yes. Please choose your online nickname. 1. Waist snack. 2. Intimate partner of middle-aged and elderly women. 3. Donzo's fluffy ball. I don't want any of them, okay. Yifeng's mouth twitched fiercely, and he could only grit his teeth and choose 1. Interesting, mysterious dating call. Waist snack. Hello, what's your name? Wait a minute, I'll deal with the things in front of me first. Waist snack. Huh, just the king of the Millennium Curse. Don't worry, you will win. What is the king of the Millennium Curse? Kushina looked at the chat message with a confused face. Just as she finished speaking, Yifeng had no time to answer. Your friend has died. Yifeng looked at the gray screen and fell into deep thought. Chapter 91. This guy, is it over? After an unknown amount of time, Kushina asked hesitantly. It should be over. Yifeng looked at the rematch displayed on the screen in front of him and nodded with a complicated expression. After waiting for more than half a month, who wouldn't be confused by this result? Can it still be matched? Mrs. Makoto asked in a low voice. I don't know, let's put it aside for now. Yifeng took a breath and put the communicator back into his pocket. How could this happen? Your curse reward is really unreliable. Kushina couldn't help but complain, saying, I also want to try what the online chat you mentioned is like. We talk to the Wave Country every day, which can also be considered an online chat. Yifeng explained. That's different, we're all acquaintances. Teacher Nono and the others haven't seen you yet. I feel familiar with you unilaterally, so does that mean we're not acquaintances? Kushina snorted, and said unhappily, you have to argue with me, right? Okay, you're right. Yifeng decided to surrender. HMPH, I think you are just saying it but not really convinced. Kushina pursed her lips and said lightly, let's try it out after school tonight. You want it again. You did it so many times last night, be more restrained. Mrs. Masaka pulled her sleeve and whispered, it's not good for your health if you continue like this. Why, you are still worried about whether I will have kidney deficiency, right? Kushina stared and said dissatisfiedly, now that the little fool has not grown up, what other entertainment activities are there besides playing this? No, your starting point is wrong. Why do you think about that kind of thing in your mind? Don't you want to? I want to, but let's go together tonight. No, it's not a good idea. What's wrong with it? The little fool didn't object. Well, let's try it. Mrs. Masaka, did you find that you were led astray? Yifeng wanted to complain at this time, but he chose to remain silent after all. Yifeng, Naruto beside him patted his shoulder and whispered, "Are you sleepwalking?" "No, I was thinking about something else." Yifeng smiled and asked in confusion, "What's wrong?" "About this Chunin exam." Ino took over the conversation and whispered, "Aren't other ninja villages plotting to attack Konoha? Which side should we stand on? In theory, we should remain neutral, but the people of Konoha are innocent." Yifeng said calmly. "You're right." Naruto nodded in agreement. "So, our mission at that time was to protect the people." Shikamaru touched his chin and said, "What about you?" "Don't worry about me, I should be a dead man at that time." Yifeng replied with a smile. Ah, the people around were stunned and looked at each other. River country, a humid cave. Danzo opened his eyes and sat up, looking around vigilantly. In a dark environment, he was surrounded by the incomplete corpses of wild animals. This made his expression on his face become quite confused, and his brows were furrowed. He recalled everything before he lost consciousness. He was plotted against by his trusted subordinates, and completely lost his mind and became a wild animal. But what is the situation now? Is he dead? Is this the legendary underworld? Humph, you finally woke up. A hoarse voice sounded beside him. Danzo was startled and looked at the source of the sound. A monster covered with bone scales appeared in front of him, with a long tail behind him, looking like a human in a lizard skin suit. But Danzo heard from the voice that this guy was Orochimaru. "What a terrible experience in the underworld. I met you after going to hell," Danzo said coldly. "The underworld." Orochimaru was stunned for a moment, and sneered, "So that's how it is. You thought we were dead too. But unfortunately, that guy Yanma seems to hate us too." "What do you mean?" Danzo's eyes widened. "Literally, we are not dead yet." Orochimaru shook his head and said lightly, "My original idea was right. Adding the tailed beast chakra can make us completely beast-like without losing our minds." Tailed beast chakra. Danzo looked stunned. "By chance, I once obtained a partial sample of the 8 tails." Orochimaru crossed his arms and explained in a hoarse voice, "I have been carrying it with me to avoid losing it. I didn't expect that an unintentional action would save our lives." Danzo said solemnly, "You saved me, what do you want to do?" "Don't you want revenge, Elder Danzo?" Orochimaru licked his mouth with his forked tongue, grinning, "It must be uncomfortable to be betrayed by your own subordinates, right? You want to cooperate with me. I just want to tear that brat apart and let him know that some people can't be provoked. He is now the focus of training for that idiot Hiruzen. Can we really break into Konoha and kill him with just the 2 of us? That's the most reckless and worst plan." Orochimaru shook his head and said, "It will take a long time for us to fully control this power. Rushing into Konoha now is obviously a dead end. But next year's Chunin exam has created an opportunity for us. That brat should participate, right? Are you going to dress up as a candidate?" Danzo looked at Orochimaru in front of him with a very disgusted expression on his face. "With your current appearance, I'm afraid you'll be discovered before you even get close to the gate of Konoha." "What's that look in your eyes?" Orochimaru frowned and said unhappily, "I said, as long as I fully control this power, I will be able to transform myself. By then, my identity will be the 4th cage, so that I can ensure that nothing goes wrong. Becoming the shadow of a village to approach that kid will definitely not make him too wary. And if I suddenly launch a fatal attack at that time, the effect will be absolutely outstanding." "Good plan." Danzo frowned and pondered for a long time, and said solemnly, "But it is still a bit unsafe to face that kid with our own strength. We should win over a few more allies." "Ally?" Orochimaru raised his eyebrows and said, "Can you ensure that the ally you choose is not the kid's man? Hanzo, the founder of the Umbrella Company, do you think he could be?" Danzo said in a deep voice. Orochimaru's eyes lit up and agreed, "If it is Hanzo, we can try." Quote, "Their inherent impression of Hanzo is that he is a tyrant in the ninja world. Such a person would never be inferior to others. This little kid probably relied on personal connections to win over Kabuto and Weiyu to his side. Can such a person win over Hanzo? Oh, it's simply a fantasy. If they can win over Hanzo, the developer of the Super Ninja Plan, to help, why would they worry about not being able to accomplish their goal? I'll go and convince Hanzo." Danzo volunteered, saying, "We'll meet up in the Sand Village then. Fire Country, Old Alley. Spare me, spare my life." The middle-aged man in a luxurious outer robe and a sturdy figure faced the young man in front of him, begging for mercy with cold sweat. Please spare me, we can negotiate how much money you want. As the right minister of the fire country, you actually use money to measure your life. Yi Feng curved his mouth and said in a mocking tone, isn't this a bit too despicable? Spare me. The middle-aged man trembled and said with fear on his face, please spare me, I don't want to die yet. Everyone doesn't want to die, but in the end they have to die. Yi Feng shook his head and said indifferently, Mr. Right Minister, I hope you can save your dignity before you die. No, don't. The right minister who heard him not only lost his dignity, but even his voice became sharp. Ms. Weiyu, leave it to you. Yi Feng was too lazy to look at him again, and turned his back to admire the murals on both sides. This place is worthy of being the rich and powerful area of the Land of Fire. Even the murals carved in the alleys are from the masters. Yes, Lord Chief. Weiyu, who was standing next to him, nodded and drew out the long sword from his waist. Stop. A deep voice suddenly sounded. However, Ms. Weiyu ignored him at all and directly raised her sword. Puff. Blood splattered and the head fell to the ground. You. The man was a monk with a bald head, wearing a gray and white monk's robe. With thick eyebrows and big eyes, he exuded a very upright temperament. The 12 guardian ninjas, you should be Mr. Dilu, right? Yi Feng asked with a smile. Are you ninjas from Konoha? Dilu also saw Weiyu's outfit at this time. The Konoha Anbu costume was highly recognizable. Why do you want to attack the right minister? Aren't you afraid of causing a dispute between the Hokage and the daimyo? My name is Zhaolin Yifeng, and this is Weiyu. Yifeng first made a brief self-introduction, and then explained with a smile. As for why you want to kill this fool, please go to his basement to find out for yourself, Mr. Dilu. As he spoke, he raised his foot and walked out of the alley. Wait. Dilu wanted to stop them with a cold face. Choke. Weiyu drew her sword without hesitation. She had just seen the purgatory on earth in the mansion of the right minister, and now she was still holding her breath. No need to do this, your sword is used to kill beasts. Yifeng said softly. Yes. Weiyu lowered his head and put the sword back into the sheath. The two just took another step forward, and in Dilu's eyes, they disappeared out of thin air. This. Dilu's forehead was covered with cold sweat, and his eyes were wide open. After a long time, he took a deep breath and walked towards the mansion of the right minister. The corpses all over the ground were shocking. Judging from the clothes of these corpses, they were obviously the guards and servants of the right minister. But Dilu had no idea how they died. There was no scar on their bodies. They just stared with fear. He raised his palms and chanted the Buddha's name, and then walked into the basement with the door open. Looking at the scene inside, his expression was suddenly stunned. The room was filled with various torture instruments, which were stained with long-dried blood and coagulated human tissue. The most terrifying thing was that some of the torture instruments were still hanging with the mutilated bodies of young girls. The whole scene was like a scroll of hell. Konoha, underground base. You killed your employer on the first day of becoming an intern in the Anbu. You are worthy of it. Kushina gave Yi Feng a thumbs up. Basic operation is not 6. Yi Feng said calmly. I'm not praising you, you shouldn't have let Weiyu kill him directly. Kushina put her hands on her hips and said angrily, a dog-like newborn like that should also be allowed to experience the way those poor girls died. Yi Feng was silent for a moment and said, how about I make him an Arrancar and do it again? Forget it, there's no need to waste time on that kind of scum. Kushina waved her hand and sighed. Compared to this newborn, I feel that even Danzo is a bit more handsome. Although Danzo is bad, at least he won't do such a thing as killing a girl. Beep beep. The communicator on the wrist issued a prompt. Chief, Danzo is here. Mrs. Rina's voice came from the other side. I'll be there right away. Yi Feng nodded gently and opened the black chamber. The reception room of the umbrella company. I never thought you would end up like this, my friend Danzo. Hanzo sighed, and said in distress, do you remember how I warned you before? I was tricked. He was bandaged all over, with only half of his eyes exposed. Danzo picked up the teacup and said, that traitor, I don't know where he stole the pure formula from. He was obviously talking nonsense. Danzo actually didn't know whether the medicine in Yifeng's hand was stolen or developed by himself. Anyway, he just put the blame on him. As expected, Salamander Hanzo's expression suddenly became solemn, frowning and said, "Pure formula." "Danzo, my friend, are you really sure?" "I dare to guarantee it. It seems that there is a traitor here." "So the pure formula really leaked from you?" Danzo asked tentatively. "That's my latest research project, and it's only in the trial run stage." Hanzo took a breath and whispered, "I can guarantee that no one else can purify the medicine except me." "What a fool," Danzo cursed, angrily. "Not only did he harm me, but he even came to you to pick peaches. You should carefully screen the backbone members of your research team. That fool is very good at winning people's hearts." "You were right." Hanzo suppressed his smile and said to Rina behind him, "You heard it all, do it." "Okay." Mrs. Rina, who was wearing a gray suit, nodded and walked out of the reception room. "Could your subordinate be?" Danzo looked at Mrs. Na's hair color and asked in confusion. "Her full name is Uzumaki Rina, and she is the secretary of the leader of my wave country." Hanzo smiled. "It's really Uzumaki." Danzo took a breath and said in a deep voice, "It seems that we have a common enemy this time, old friend Hanzo." In order to make friends, he even called him, old friend. After being beaten many times, Danzo also learned the ways of the world. In fact, if he had not hated Yifeng so much, he would never come to the sad place of Umbrella Company. And now that he has come, he has made up his mind to risk everything. As long as Hanzo, the salamander in front of him, is willing to help him, Danzo can even call him Godfather. That's true. Unexpectedly, Hanzo was very easy to talk to, nodding in agreement and saying, "I can't rest until this thief is eliminated." Danzo took advantage of the victory and said, "In that case, should we cooperate?" "Yes, but first I have to take you to meet the leader of our wave country." "Huh, you're not the leader here. Don't talk nonsense, I'm just an entrepreneur." Hanzo raised his eyebrows at him and whispered, "It's just a formality, you know what I mean." Danzo understood instantly and said lightly, "Then meet." Walking up the stairs to the top floor, Hanzo opened the door of the leader's office and smiled as if to invite him. Danzo felt that his smile was a bit strange at this moment, but he didn't think much about it. Until the moment he walked into the room, he saw the figure of the boy standing by the window with his back to him. "See you again, Master Danzo." You. Looking at the familiar boy in front of him, Danzo's whole face under the bandage was stunned. How could it be? "Let me introduce you to my friend Danzo." Hanzo walked into the room leisurely, grinning and said, "This is the leader of our wave country, Mr. Xiaolin Yifeng." The leader of the wave country. Danzo glanced at Hanzo, and then turned his eyes to Yifeng by the window. He was still in a state of shock at this time, and his brain couldn't handle such a complicated scene in front of him for a while. In layman's terms, it's incomprehensible. It's completely incomprehensible why Xiaolin Yifeng would become the leader of the wave country. His parents and ancestors are all from Konoha, and none of them have a background in the wave country. I am only a student of Konoha's ninja school so far, how can he become the leader of the wave country? Now, in front of our leader, my friend Danzo, why don't you tell me who the traitor you want to kill is? Hanzo narrowed his eyes and smiled, "The leader and I will definitely do you justice." You are kidding me, right? Danzo finally understood at this time that he had been played like a puppet by the two people in front of him. He took a deep breath and said coldly, "Xiaolin Yifeng, you are really something. Answer me a question, did you know that I would fall into the trap?" Looking back, the young man in front of him was not surprised at all when he saw him. It is obvious that the other party probably knew that he would come to the land of waves. Indeed, I knew from the beginning that Danzo would come here to meet me again. Yifeng did not hide it and nodded calmly. Why? Danzo frowned under the bandage and said incomprehensibly, "Why are you so sure?" At that time, both he and Orochimaru had lost their minds. According to common sense, the other party should think that they were dead. It's very simple. When we met 2 days ago, I found that Senior Orochimaru was carrying an 8-tails sample. Yifeng smiled and said, "With the tailed beast chakra to neutralize it, your lost mind will be restored in the morning of the next day." You even know this? Danzo didn't know what to say. They were really being controlled. our leader discovered 2 months ago that the fusion of tailed beast chakra and hollow objects can achieve a staged balance. Hanzo explained with a smile, saying, I'm afraid Orochimaru is still complacent and thinks he is the first person to know this secret. Danzo took a breath. At this time, he really felt that the boy in front of him was a monster. Is there really nothing in this world that he can't do? I know very well that both Danzo and Orochimaru are unwilling to fail. Yifeng paused and said, if you want to avenge me, you must find other helpers. From your perspective, the best helper is naturally Hanzo. I am really touched that my friend Danzo trusts me so much. Hanzo sighed. This old fool. Danzo really wanted to rush up and beat him to death at this time. When did BYD learn to act from others? As for Orochimaru, the route he chose should be the Sand Village, right? Yifeng said in a gentle voice. Danzo was stunned for a moment, and his pupils suddenly shrank. Judging from your performance, I should have guessed it right. Yifeng smiled and looked at Hanzo. There are still 5 days left. When the time comes, please replace Danzo and Orochimaru to meet up. Yes. Hanzo nodded respectfully. Replace me. Danzo pointed at himself with a face full of question marks. Who do you think Hanzo is now? Yifeng said indifferently. Danzo turned his eyes to the side, and another self appeared in his eyes. He waved his hand indifferently and said in a low voice, Nice to meet you, I am Shimura Danzo. No flaws. Whether in appearance, expression or tone, it is exactly the same as himself. Even if Danzo had opened Shisui's kaleidoscope at this time, the self played by Hanzo in front of him still did not change at all. What kind of ability do you have? Click. Before Yifeng could answer, the office door opened again. The big bug in a maid outfit walked into the room and saluted Yifeng respectfully. Then he turned his eyes to Danzo and said in a nice royal sister voice, 9984, it's time for us to go. Dark underground prison. Danzo looked at the familiar scene in front of him, and the corners of his mouth couldn't help twitching fiercely. Oh, 9984, you're back again. Welcome, welcome. 2 guards came forward and led him through the tunnel. Hey, live guy behind. Stopped in front of a cell door, one of the guards said, you have a new companion today, get along well. Are there new companions? Danzo heard a rather shrill voice, and walked into the cell to find that this thing didn't seem to be a human at all. It was all white, and it was impossible to see the human gender organs. In addition to this guy who didn't look like a human, there was also a freak with asymmetrical left and right faces and a shark face with blue-gray skin in the cell. The moment they saw Danzo, their expressions were obviously stunned. Oh, I didn't expect the new companion to be a porcupine. White Zetsu's body came forward and looked at Danzo covered with white bones and said, this world is getting more and more interesting. Shut up, old man. Danzo couldn't stand it anymore, and said angrily, you are the porcupine. This voice, Shimura Danzo. Obito was startled and narrowed his eyes. How did the elder of Konoha become like this now? Hoshigaki Kisame touched his chin and stared at Danzo and said, did he just come out of the research institute? Do you know me? Danzo looked at the people around him and felt that he had seen the guy with asymmetrical left and right faces somewhere, but he couldn't remember where. Since he is an acquaintance, it will be easy to deal with. The original body of White Zetsu patted Danzo on the shoulder and said arrogantly, brother, you are very popular in this prison area. If you have any problems, come to me. Brother will do it for you. But in return, you have to vote for me in the election of toilet model this month. Toilet model. Danzo was confused. It's just the gate of the prison public toilet. Hoshigaki Kisame explained. Danzo's face trembled, and he always felt that the white creature in front of him seemed to have some intellectual defects. Looking at the other 2 inmates, it feels like none of them looks like a human. Outside the chief's office, pharmacist Nono straightened her clothes and raised her hand to knock on the door. She received a message from Yifeng outside, saying that there was a surprise for her. This made Nono wonder that the kid was going to invite her on a date. Is her current dress okay? Should she dress more beautifully? Just when she was feeling entangled, the door opened. Looking at the 2 women standing behind Yifeng, Nono was stunned. Kushina, Mrs. Makoto. Haha, long time no see Nono. Nice to see you again, Dean Nono. The 2 ladies came forward, and the expressions of the 3 women seemed a little excited. But soon Nono found something wrong. Both ladies had a very obvious strawberry mark on their necks, which looked fresh. Look at Yifeng sitting at the desk. Although he lowered his head, the bright red circle under his neck was particularly eye-catching. The smile on Nono's face disappeared instantly, and his expression became frozen. Fire country, border forest. Is Nono still angry? Asked Kushina, who was walking on the left side of Yifeng. You don't need to ask about that kind of thing, right? Mrs. Makoto, who was on the right side of Yifeng, rolled her eyes and said helplessly, you knew it would lead to such a result, but you still had to make trouble. It will always be noticed anyway. Kushina spread her hands and said with a smile, I think it's better to know about this kind of thing earlier than later, at least she can be mentally prepared. But you don't need such a fierce method. Is this fierce? What do you mean, you have a more fierce method? If the two of us wear maid costumes and collars and call this little master, what do you think Nono will look like? Hiss, it has to be you. Ha ha ha, that's a must. Yifeng didn't interrupt the two ladies' conversation throughout the whole process, and it was not easy for him to interrupt such things. Little fool, do we feel excited about what we are wearing now? Kushina suddenly stretched out her hand to hook Yifeng's shoulder, leaned close to his ear and whispered, Anbu limited edition skin, do you like it? That's right. At this moment, both ladies were wearing silver gray Anbu costumes and Anbu masks on their faces. They said they were accompanying Yifeng to perform the Anbu mission, but in fact they just wanted to go out for a walk. I like it, it's great. Yifeng praised sincerely. Then let's wear this tonight. Kushina exhaled like orchids, and said, how about the theme of Anbu interrogation? Tie Makoto-chan to the bed, and then the clothes are one by one. That's it. Mrs. Makoto's face under the mask suddenly blushed, and she pretended to be angry and said, we are on a mission, can you stop thinking about those crooked things? You said others were crooked, but you drooled. Kushina teased. Mrs. Makoto subconsciously raised her sleeve to wipe her mouth, but soon realized that she was wearing a mask on her face. This bad woman is playing tricks on me again. Boom. A huge explosion suddenly came from afar. It seems that's the mission location. Yifeng looked at the source of the sound. Very strong chakra fluctuations, could it be? Kushina raised her eyebrows under the mask. Well, it can't be wrong. Yifeng curled his lips and laughed softly. Someone is catching the tailed beast. On a desolate ruin. I didn't expect the tailed beast to become more violent after leaving the Jinchuriki. Scorpion stared at the behemoth in front of him, his tone slightly gloomy. This behemoth has two horns, and its body is a bit like a horse, but its face is a bit like a dolphin. 5 tails behind its buttocks slapped the ground, and it was obviously angry. Let's retreat for now. Uchiha Itachi, who was standing not far from him, suggested, such an enemy is not suitable for direct confrontation. His Mangekyo Sharingan can restrain the tailed beast, but he obviously doesn't plan to use it. One is to hide his weakness, the other is that his body has already had a negative reaction, and forcible use will reduce his lifespan. Itachi is not going to die yet. There are still terrible people like Xiaolin Yifeng in the ninja world who are eyeing him covetously, and he wants to keep a useful body to protect Konoha and his brother. Don't teach me how to do things. Scorpion glared at him fiercely and said coldly, it's just a beast without a brain. Today I will let it see what eternal art is. The red amber on his body has been broken, revealing his original young man form. He took out a scroll from his pocket and pulled it open, and a large cloud of smoke burst out. Red Secret Technique 100 Machines Operation. Uchiha Itachi was stunned, with a surprised expression on his face. Hundreds of puppets in red robes suddenly appeared in his eyes, densely surrounding the 5 tails. This is one of Scorpion's trump cards. The combat power formed by hundreds of puppets has the power to easily destroy a small country. Boom. Even the 5 tails was completely suppressed by the dazzling attack at this moment. His body was pierced through the ground fiercely, and he let out an angry roar. Humph, is this the extent of the tailed beast? Scorpion showed a confident expression on his face. However, the next moment, groups of colorful chakra balls condensed in front of King Emu's tail, and finally formed a huge tailed beast jade. Boom. The tailed beast jade directly smashed the many puppets in front of him, and the sky was full of smoke and dust. Bang. King Emu's white body suddenly rushed out of the smoke and dust, lowering his head and rushing towards Scorpion and Itachi. This fool! Scorpion's right hand had already grasped the last life-saving trump card in his pocket, and Itachi's eyes began to gradually change their form. At this point, they also cared about "Don't hide your weakness." Just at this moment, a black-haired figure fell from the sky and landed between the two. Facing King Mu, he stretched out his right arm. Boom! King Mu, who was rushing at high speed, seemed to hit an air wall, and his huge body actually flew backwards. What happened? Scorpion and Itachi looked at each other, and both saw the disbelief in each other's eyes. Are you kidding? This guy actually blocked the tailed beast with one arm. Good afternoon, Scorpion Sr. and Itachi Sr. A familiar voice sounded, and Itachi became a little stiff. The boy wearing black framed glasses and white clothes showed up with a warm smile on his face. Shaolin Yifeng. Scorpion was ignorant and fearless, and said coldly, "Why are you here?" "A commission from Konoha's Anbu." Yifeng did not hide it, and explained with a smile, "There was an unknown movement in the border area of the Fire Country. I didn't expect that the two of you were here to capture the tailed beasts." "Are they your people?" Scorpion glanced at Kushina standing beside him, and then turned his gaze to Mrs. Makoto wearing a monkey mask. "Girlfriend," Kushina suddenly said. Scorpion and Itachi were stunned at the same time, but didn't say much. "Don't worry." Yifeng's mouth curved, and he said lightly, "It will be over soon." Boom! As if to confirm his words, the huge Five Tails was easily knocked down by Mrs. Makoto with one punch again. The wanton strong wind blew Yifeng's hair at the temples, and his clothes rustled. Stunned, seeing this scene, Scorpion and Itachi fell into a daze again. Is that really a human? Even if the legendary god of ninja is resurrected, he can't treat the tailed beasts like toys like this, right? And for some reason, Itachi always felt that the black-haired figure was very familiar, so familiar that he couldn't help but want to get close to him. "Please go back and tell Chief Pain that I will accept the Five Tails for the time being." Yi Feng smiled. "You accepted it." Scorpion frowned and wanted to say something, but looking at the monkey-faced Anbu who grabbed the Five Tails' horns and dragged it over like a leisurely stroll, he didn't say a word after all. "I can't afford to offend him, let the chief worry about it himself." "I will convey your words truthfully." Itachi pretended to be calm and turned away. The corner of his eye caught the monkey-faced Anbu trotting to Yifeng and hugging him intimately. The feeling of discomfort in his heart became stronger. "Why, girlfriend?" In the Akatsuki base, Nagato looked at Scorpion who was reporting to him, and said in astonishment, "Did you see Yifeng with his girlfriend?" "2. No, buddy. Is that all you care about? Isn't the point about the tailed beasts?" Scorpion wanted to complain at this moment, but he held back. He nodded indifferently and said, "That female Anbu admitted it herself." "I see." Nagato nodded and said, "Thank you for your hard work this time." That's it. Scorpion stood there waiting for the other party's next words, but after half a day, there was still nothing. What does it mean? What the hell does this mean? You, the leader, have worked so hard to get us to collect the tailed beasts, but now that kid has intercepted them and you don't even say a word. I know what you're thinking, Scorpion. Nagato's lilac-rippled pupils looked at him and said lightly, "It doesn't matter whether you give the tailed beast to Yifeng or to me. As long as the purpose is the same, there is no need to care about these trivial matters." No difference. Scorpion seemed to understand something at this time. After a moment of silence, he said, "You are the leader, you have the final say." After saying that, he turned and left. Scorpion seems to be a little dissatisfied with what you said. Xiaonan, who was standing beside Nagato, said. It's normal. His current thinking has not changed. Nagato shook his head and said softly, "Compared to this, it's your brother's matter. Aren't you angry?" Nagato probably now knows that his friend has a little more than a sister-brother relationship with her brother, but he didn't react much to the fact that he suspected that the other party had 2 girlfriends. It feels a bit abnormal. If he only has 1 girlfriend, I might be angry. Xiaonan said lightly. Nagato's expression was a little dull. You only have 1 girlfriend, which means she is the only one. A voice suddenly sounded from the side. But now there are 2, so you think you still have a chance, right? The owner of the voice was Yahiko with orange hair. At this moment, he has completed the Arankar, and the two milky white bone marks under the left and right earlobes are very conspicuous. Conan, do you think so? Nagato stared and took a breath. Conan didn't answer, which was equivalent to acquiescence. According to our internal information of the umbrella company, those two are very important. Yahiko whispered. What do you mean? Nagato showed a gossipy expression on his face. The wife of the fourth Hokage Namikaze Minato and the wife of the former Uchiha clan leader Uchiha Fugaku. What, it's the two of them. Yifeng, that child, how could? Now it is said within the umbrella company that it may be because the leader was an orphan when he was a child, so he lacks maternal love. Is that so? Nagato suddenly realized. Just know this, don't spread it around. Yahiko smiled and said, in the future, the Hidden Rock Village may hire us to sabotage the Chunin exam held in Konoha. Don't worry, I will refuse them. No, don't refuse, but the offer price must be raised, and we can use the money to build the Hidden Rain Village. The Land of Waves, the chief's office. Yifeng, Makoto, and Kushina stared at the toy box on the desk with their eyes focused. There was a thumb-sized pony in the box that kept hitting the wall, but no matter how hard it tried, the wall remained motionless. The pony was the five-tailed King Mew. And this box was the Meow Meow house that the system rewarded Yifeng a long time ago. I never had the chance to use it, but it came in handy when I put it here. The huge-tailed beast turned into a thumb-sized pony doll, and its little appearance was quite cute. Click. Yifeng casually sent a ball of tailed beast chakra from Meow Meow's house to the tree of life on the windowsill, and the sapling became visibly greener. It actually works. Seeing this scene, Kushina raised her eyebrows and said, what is the composition of this thing? It can swallow the tailed beast chakra. Not only that, Yifeng stretched out one of his fingers and gathered spiritual pressure. At this time, the sapling actually took the initiative to stretch out its branches and wrapped Yifeng's fingers tightly. Hey, this thing is interesting. Kushina looked surprised and said with eyes wide open, this set of movements looks quite astringent. Can it really turn into a plant girl? Wah-la-la. As if they were full, the branches actually took the initiative to retract from Yifeng's fingers. You are really astringent now, everything you see is astringent. Mrs. Makoto couldn't help but complain. It's really astringent, it wrapped the whole finger of the little fool. Kushina blinked, licked her lips and said, it feels like. Stop here. Mrs. Makoto blushed and made a pause gesture. This is the office, not at home. Tisk tisk tisk. Makoto-chan dares to play with her big son in front of her, why is she still so shy? Kushina smacked her lips. What do you mean by playing with your son? It was just a hug. But you are thinking about playing with your son, aren't you? No, you think too much. I can understand that you want to find excitement, but it's a bit lame for you to dare to do it but not admit it. Quote. I'm too lazy to tell you. It's obvious that Mrs. Makoto lost again this time, and her verbal skills were not good enough. Yifeng did not participate in the bickering between the two as usual, and opened the monthly report of Wave Country on the computer on the desk. The good news is that this month's income is obviously 50% higher than last month. The bad news is that the bulk of the income is not the high-tech industry he is most optimistic about, but the rejuvenation pill. Ha 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 ha, this is the power of the old pervert. Kushina laughed and leaned back, holding her stomach and said, what high-tech, what internet, is it important to have a pill that can make people golden? Obviously, it's not. It doesn't matter, at least the income is greater than the expenditure. Mrs. Makoto comforted. Or, let's just transform. Kushina blinked and suggested, close your high-tech industries, and we will open a chain of adult product stores. I think it will be a big hit. Quote. What the hell is this adult store? This ninja world is really poisonous. Yifeng's face was dark and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. Hey, this rising icon. Mrs. Makoto pointed at the computer screen and said in surprise, I didn't expect that the magical girl Uchiha Madara drawn by Kushina actually sold hundreds of thousands of copies. It seems that you really have the potential to be a master. I agree with Yifeng. This ninja world is really poisonous. Kushina was not happy at all. She said with a black line on her head, I just took it out for fun to disgust people. How come it sold hundreds of thousands of copies? What should I do now? She doesn't want to become famous in this way. It's okay, master. Yi Feng patted her shoulder and said earnestly, I gave you a pen name, Shinako. Very cute, right? New, what's new? Nanako, do you believe that I will bite you to death? Quote. Knock, knock, knock. There was a knock on the door. Come in, Captain. Our ocean-going fleet encountered a storm near the coast of the Land of Water. Mrs. Rena walked into the office and said anxiously, please order a rescue team to be dispatched immediately. Dark clouds rolled, and the wind howled. Tens of meters high waves kept hitting the shore, and the villages along the coast were destroyed in an instant, leaving only broken wooden strips that rose and fell with the waves. Doomsday. The scene in front of me was just like the end of the world. On the cliffs by the coast, several figures appeared. The leader was a woman with long curly brown hair. She was wearing silver gray Anbu clothes and a headband from the Hidden Mist village. Her emerald eyes stared at the sky with rolling thunderclouds, and then turned her gaze to the ordinary people struggling to escape. Click. Without any hesitation, she dived down the cliff. Her feet stood on the sea water, and her hands stretched out to quickly form seals. Water escape, water rush. Splash. The seawater under his feet surged and condensed into a water explosion with a diameter of more than 10 meters, and it went straight to the huge waves on the opposite side. Boom. The two collided, and the whole area made a muffled sound. With the efforts of her and her colleagues, this tsunami was indeed stopped. But this is only temporary after all. If the severe convective weather does not stop, disasters will continue to occur. The woman obviously understood this and decisively issued an order. Ching, you take Ishihara to evacuate the nearby people first. But Lord Ming, you stay here. Ching's face was slightly worried. Stop talking nonsense. Terumi Mei glared at him and said, since we have received this mission as rescuers, rescuing the people should be our first priority. Yes. Ching nodded and disappeared with another colleague. Not long after the two left, Terumi Mei made a seal with both hands again. Together with the remaining colleagues, they created a mirror-like barrier in front of them, just to buy some time. Boom. The waves raised by the storm continued to wash, and thunder began to resound in the sky. In the face of such unreasonable natural disasters, human power is still limited after all. Soon, some people in the team began to lose strength. The flawless mirror gradually extended cracks, making a creaking sound under the heavy load. Mei Terumi gritted her teeth and let the rain mixed with sweat flow down her temples. Fortunately, I have fulfilled my mission, Lord Ming. Fortunately, Ching appeared again at this time and whispered, the nearby people have been evacuated to a safe place, we can leave. Retreat. Mei Terumi gave an order, and the mirror shattered in an instant. Wheezing, the sea water poured back, and the entire coastline turned into an ocean at this moment. What a terrible disaster. Ching looked at the scene in front of him with a sad face and said, we, the Hidden Mist Village, finally got back on track, but we didn't expect to encounter such a thing. Look at the bright side, at least I would rather face such a natural disaster than let the Hidden Mist Village repeat the same mistake. Terumi Mei smiled softly, looked around and said, it's all over, right? Are there any other people nearby who need help? Yes, a fleet is trapped in the southern coastal waters. Ishihara reported. This idiot. Ching glared at him fiercely and whispered, it's not our water country fleet, they are flying the flag of the wave country. And the wind and waves near the coast are even stronger, even we can hardly get close. Obviously, he didn't want this promising Lord Ming to take risks. If something happened to him, not only would the Yuanxi elders peel him off, but it would also be a huge loss to the entire Hidden Mist Village. However, Mei Terumi was obviously a stubborn person. She said decisively, you wait here, I'll go and take a look. Master Mei, our Kurigakure is about to usher in a peaceful opening, so it is necessary to have good relations with neighboring countries. Leaving this sentence, Mei Terumi stepped on the water and ran towards the southern coastal waters. The fact is just as Ching said. The further you go to the sea, the bigger the wind and waves will be. Even though Mei Terumi has seen the ocean-going fleet tied up with ropes and swaying in the wind, she can't get close at all. The violent hurricane formed a natural barrier, clearly separating her and the fleet. Mei Terumi gritted her teeth, and her chakra ran at high speed. She wanted to rush over. At this point, it was not just to save people, she just didn't want to bow to this harsh environment. Her hands made a seal with great difficulty, and a water dragon rose under her feet. The water dragon hit the storm barrier hard, and her body rushed towards the fleet under the inertia of this force. Ha, I'm a genius. Mei Terumi smiled brightly, feeling very proud of this wonderful idea she came up with. Suddenly, a huge wave rose tang, slapped her head. Mei Terumi gritted her teeth and cursed, but she was helpless at this time. Bang! Her body was slapped backwards by this huge force. Just as she was about to fall into the sea, a hand grabbed the collar of her neck at this critical moment. This is. Turning her head, she saw a handsome boy's face. He was wearing a white shirt, and even though he was wearing very rustic black-framed glasses, he exuded a kind of extraordinary temperament that Mei Terumi had never seen before. I thank you for your rescue on behalf of the fleet. The boy said gently. Who are you? Mei Terumi asked blankly, and suddenly found that her current posture seemed a little strange. Being held in the hand of the boy like a chicken, it was not elegant at all. But she couldn't let the other party put her down, because they were now in midair. No, to be more precise, the boy was standing steadily in the air, and she was the attached pendant. This discovery made Mei Terumi feel that the boy in front of her was even more mysterious. There were not many ninjutsu in the ninja world that could fly, and she had never seen or heard of a boy who used the air as a pedal to stand in the air. Mei Terumi didn't know at the moment that the boy who was holding him was in a dilemma. A golden-framed interface appeared in front of him. Choose. 1. Let her call you the ninja succubus. 2. Tell her that your name is Itchy Drums. 3. Say your name and ask her if she wants to join your nude party tonight. Glancing at the options, Yi Feng took a deep breath and said, Succubus of the ninja world. What? Mei Terumi was stunned, her mouth slightly open. You can call me the ninja succubus. God knows how stiff Yi Feng was when he said this. Congratulations on obtaining the boiling release bloodline. Ninja world succubus. Mei Terumi's mouth twitched fiercely, and for a moment she didn't know where to start complaining. Ha 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 ha, I'm so happy. Kushina in the Soul Pearl was almost laughing like crazy. Don't worry, it will be over soon. Yi Feng held Mei Terumi in his left hand and pulled out the blade from his waist with his right hand. You are. Before Mei Terumi could ask, Yi Feng had already swung the long sword in his hand. Swish. A sound like cloth tearing rang out between heaven and earth. The sea surface under his feet was cut in half flatly, and the violent hurricane dissipated into nothingness. Not only that, the rolling black clouds in the sky were also split apart at this moment, and the sun fell on the sea surface, rippling the waves. Stupefied, Mei Terumi opened her mouth, and the whole person fell into a dreamlike daze. Hidden Mist Village, Mizukage Building. The young fourth Mizukage sat at his desk, holding his chin with his hands and whispered, You mean, you were saved by a child who was probably in his early teens, and the other party cut off the typhoon with one sword. I know it's hard for you to believe, but it's true. Terumi Mei said seriously. Ming, I hope you can understand. Yagura rubbed his brows with a headache, and said helplessly, We are not in the mythological era now, and cutting off the typhoon with a sword is something that even the six-path sage of the mythological era might not be able to do at the age of 10. Not only did he cut off the typhoon, his sword also split the sea and split the dark clouds. Terumi Mei's expression was solemn. Yagura was silent for a long time, and sighed, You are not young anymore, Ming. It's better not to dream that the Prince Charming is a mythological figure. What's more, the other party's age is set at just over 10 years old, and you are breaking the law. Mizukage-sama, I'm not dreaming. Terumi Mei said in shame and anger. What's the name of this mythical boy you mentioned, and where did he come from? Yagura asked, shaking his head. Ninja succubus. What? He asked me to call him ninja succubus, and I don't know anything else. Ninja succubus. Yagura's mouth twitched and he was silent for a long time, then he decisively changed the subject and said, You are leading the team to Konoha to take the Chunin exam this time. Do you know where to focus? I don't think the Uchiha who controls you belongs to Konoha. Mei Terumi said respectfully. I also know that he is probably not a Konoha ninja, but at least Konoha should be able to provide some information. Yagura sighed and said lightly, If I don't find this fool, I really can't rest assured. Chu. Obito, holding a pickaxe in his hand, sneezed violently, attracting the attention of several people around him. Are you catching a cold? Kisame asked with concern. The straw bed is too damp, how about we switch? White Zetsu whispered. No need, keep working. Obito shook his head and glanced at Danzo not far away. The bone covering the body of this Konoha elder has gradually faded, revealing the appearance of a human body. He was very diligent when he was working on the land, and he didn't slack off. But Obito could clearly feel the unwillingness and resentment in the other's eyes. This guy probably hasn't recognized the reality yet. It's understandable. After all, he was once a high-ranking person. How could he accept changing his career to a hard laborer now? Unlike him who has been smoothed out, there is no goal and expectation in his eyes. Obito knows very well that resistance is useless. Facing that unfathomable boy, any of your strategies are just a joke in his eyes. Even if you really take advantage of the opportunity to escape, when you recruit troops outside the ninja world and prepare to fight back, you will find that all the troops you recruited are the young man's men. Your hope will only turn into despair that will trample you in the end. This is the truth that Obito realized when he was undergoing labor reform. It's not that he wants to praise Yifeng, but there is really no one in the entire ninja world who can be the opponent of that young man in playing tricks. Let's just talk about the methods he has shown so far. Remote surveillance that ignores distance, mental destruction that makes people's mentality collapse, inexplicably turning people around you into spies, and terrible illusions whose principles no one knows. All these superpositions give people a feeling of knowing everything and being omnipotent. How to fight this? How the hell do you say you should fight this? Obito is already numb. Now he just wants to dig a hole and perform well, and strive to be selected as a transformation pioneer, so that he can have a chance to make a request. Not asking for his own release, just hoping to free Lin. Just as he was immersed in his fantasy, a deep voice brought him back to reality. 9986, come with us. Me. Obito looked at the guard who appeared in front of him, his expression stunned. He has always been very honest, it seems that he has not done anything strange, right? Yes, it's you. The guard nodded and said lightly, follow me. The situation is stronger than people, Obito can only bite the bullet and follow. Passing through the dark tunnel, back to the supervision area. Obito's body was forcibly pressed on a chair. The guard was about to handcuff him, and a familiar voice suddenly sounded, no need, I will leave after a few words. The guard nodded and his body retreated into the darkness. Obito's body couldn't help but tremble slightly at this time, and his eyes were surprised and said, Rin, is it you? Nohara Lin took off the cloak covering her head, revealing the pretty face that was still in the form of a girl. It's our second meeting, Obito. You're not. Have you been deprived of your sanity by the leader? Actually, I didn't. I just did it on purpose for you and Itachi to see. Leader. Obito frowned. He felt very uncomfortable with his beloved woman's respectful address to Yifeng. He could tell that this respectful address was not deliberate, but came from the heart. But it was because of this that he felt strongly uncomfortable. I came here for only two things. Nohara Rin could see his displeasure, but she didn't want to explain at all. First, I have a book written by the leader here, and I hope you can finish reading it. After saying that, he took out the Ninja World Transformation Plan from his pocket. Obito took the book without flipping through it, but said in a deep voice, so you have given up Konoha and joined the Land of Waves now. Quote. He was sure that if it was the real Lin, she would never do such a thing. Lin sacrificed herself for Konoha. I didn't give up Konoha, I just wanted to build a better Konoha. Nohara Lin said calmly, without any sadness or joy. We won't be as extreme as your Moon Eye plan, Obito. Even the Moon Eye knows. Obito was silent for a moment, took a breath and said, so, what's your second thing? The leader hopes you can help Danzo escape from prison. Nohara Lin spit out her lips. Help Danzo escape from prison. Obito stared with his eyes full of incredulity. Danzo is a bit of a waste of talent to stay in this prison. Only by returning to Konoha can he play his greatest role. Nohara Lin said expressionlessly, this is what our leader said. Quote. What great use can Danzo have? Obito frowned. Besides destroying his own family, what else can this old man do? Wait, destroying his own family. Obito suddenly understood. Yifeng is really mean. Obito swallowed his saliva and said, when do you need me to do it? After the Chunin exam of Konoha is over, the guards will release your chakra confinement. Nohara Rin said lightly, and then changed the subject. After the mission is over, you can make a reasonable request. Do you want a reduction in sentence? Obito fell silent again. Originally, he planned to let Rin get rid of it, but now it seems that he is no longer needed. Took a deep breath and whispered, I just want the answer to one question. Why didn't you catch Uchiha Itachi? He really couldn't figure out this question. Because his mother is the future wife of the leader of the Wave Country. Nohara Rin did not hesitate and answered very frankly. Obito was stunned and stood still. I'll give you another answer for free. Nohara Rin sighed and said softly, you were not executed because the wife of another leader of our Wave Country, Uzumaki Kushina, begged for mercy. Swish. These words were like a sharp knife, piercing deep into Obito's heart. Winter goes and spring comes. The ninja world also has the new year, and the spring festival every year also symbolizes bidding farewell to the old and welcoming the new. Konoha is immersed in a festive atmosphere, with banners hanging on every corner and eaves of the house. It is not only for the spring festival, but also for the Chunin exam after the spring. The Chunin exam held by Konoha this time has gathered the 4 major ninja villages except the Cloud Ninja. It can be said to be an unprecedented annual event in the entire ninja world. It represents Konoha's strong appeal and status in the ninja world, making every Konoha resident feel proud. At this moment, the Konoha residents on the street are all laughing and talking. Even if Naruto, who is hated by everyone, walks through the street, they don't blow their beards and glare like before. Seeing them laughing so happily, I really don't want to spoil their fun. Naruto looked around the surrounding scene and sighed. It's not something we can control whether it spoils the fun or not. Shikamaru shook his head. So this is what Yi Fengjun said. The quality of the living environment of the people in the ninja world depends entirely on those in power. Ino said calmly, but the people themselves have no right to choose. War. Haruno Sakura took a breath and said, I don't know how many innocent people will suffer at that time. Sakura, have you talked to your parents? Ino asked. Not yet, I don't know what to say. Haruno Sakura pulled her hair in annoyance and said, it's definitely not okay to tell the truth, but they want to go to the arena to watch the game. It can be foreseen. When the Chunin exam comes, Iwagakure, Sand Village, and Kumogakure will attack Konoha together, and the first to suffer will definitely be the arena. Going to watch the game is pure suicide. It's okay. Ino smiled and comforted. Let Yifang do it later and don't let your parents get the tickets. What about your parents? Sakura turned her head away and asked in confusion, have you already confronted them? How is it possible? Will their legs be broken? Ino rolled her eyes and said helplessly, my father and Shikamaru's father were both appointed as members of the Guard Corps. There is no way to do it. But it's not a big problem. If they die, let Yifang transform them into hollows. Sakura was stunned and said in silence for a long time, you were really a thoughtful little cotton-padded jacket. You have paved the way for your father's death. I actually think so. Hinata raised her hand weakly. Okay, so my thinking is abnormal. Sakura pointed to her nose and said with a complicated expression, I am the only one who is trying every means to keep my parents alive. Laughing and noisy, several people have arrived at the door of Yifeng's hut. That's enough. I don't want to eat anymore. Sasuke's annoyed voice came from the house. No, another very soft female voice sounded, with an unquestionable tone, you must finish eating today. Hiss, which bad woman is hooking up with my Sasuke? Sakura was furious and opened the door very forcefully. Then she saw a woman with long black straight hair holding a bowl of oranges and stuffing it into Sasuke's arms, and Sasuke pouted with disgust. You are. Sakura, who was still furious, suddenly became a little depressed and asked while swallowing her saliva. Ah, are you all here? The woman with long black straight hair stood up from the table, wearing a black gauze dress that was gorgeous. My name is Uchiha Makoto, and I'm Sasuke's mother. Sure, is it true? Sakura stared with an embarrassed expression. At this time, Ino also discovered that she was one of the female ghosts that day. The red-haired one is Naruto's mother, and this one is Sasuke's mother. Oh my god, what is this? Are all her rivals this kind of all-powerful opponent? Hey, Sasuke's mother. Naruto also took a breath and said in disbelief, are you and my mother both? Shish. Mrs. Makoto raised an index finger and said with a sweet smile, some things should be said in passing. Everyone, please come in and sit down. Yifeng went to the Anbu to report on his work and may not be back for a while. Sasuke-kun, please entertain your friends. Hinata-chan, it seems that our previous conciliatory strategy does not work. Looking at Mrs. Makoto's leaving back, Ino said solemnly, the enemy is a little too powerful. Ah, Hinata looked a little confused. What conciliatory strategy? I have never heard of it. Let's switch to a fierce attack. Ino pounded the table lightly, and said with a firm look, we will go to choose clothes tomorrow. Hey, don't give me bad ideas. Shikamaru couldn't stand it anymore and said speechlessly, Hinata is not like you, she is from a famous family. Did you see the number on Sasuke's mother's wrist just now? Sakura interrupted. Number 2, I saw. Hinata Neji, who had not spoken before, had a complicated expression and said in a rather strange tone, I didn't expect the top 2 strongest Arankars to appear in front of us in this way. Konoha, Anbu training ground. Unlike the jubilant atmosphere on the streets, the atmosphere here was a little grim. But it was also because it was the end of the year, and the faces of the Anbu members present were freed from the constraints of masks. Captain Yifeng, congratulations on your promotion. The pretty girl with purple long hair walked up to Yifeng and said with admiration, you are the first in Konoha to become a captain at the age of 10. It's all thanks to the respect of the Hokage. Yifeng smiled gently. You can't say that. Another boy with dark circles under his eyes came over and sighed, just look at the 3-day moon dance you just performed. I'm afraid that the second generation Hokage, the founder, can only use it like this. Hey, otherwise why do we say that our Yifeng is a genius? The outgoing girl with a pineapple-like hairstyle put her hands on Yifeng's shoulders and said teasingly, Tsunade-sama only taught him for 4 days and determined that he could become a master. Such talent is really enviable. If she had half or even 1/3 of the talent of this boy, she would not be abandoned by her teacher, right? Sister Hongdu, you don't seem to be a member of our Anbu now, right? The purple-haired girl Mao Shiyan looked at the intimacy of the two and curled her lips and said, isn't it a bit bad to come here to tease our captain? Oh, is someone jealous? Utarashi Hongdu blinked and chuckled, saying, you already have a childhood sweetheart, and you are still staring at the pot. Sister Hongdu, don't joke, Shiyan and I are just friends. Moonlight Gale touched the back of his head to smooth things over. You can't do this, Gale. Hongdu shook her head and sighed, if you are so timid, be careful that your childhood sweetheart who you have raised for several years will be exploited by the sky-dropping system. Am I right, Captain Yifeng? Choose. 1. Please call me Captain Minotaur. 2. Give Mao Shiyan a trance-like contact on the spot. 3. Ask Hongdu why she has a small mace hidden in her underwear. A small mace hidden in underwear. Yifeng's eyes changed when he looked at Hongdu, and there was an unspeakable surprise. Why are you looking at me like that? Hongdu felt that she was seen through, but still pretended to be calm. Please call me Captain Minotaur. Yifeng said calmly, and everyone present was stunned. Congratulations on obtaining 20 years of chakra energy. Konoha, underground base. Your new team members are leaving, Captain Minotaur. Kushina pointed at the figure in the monitor and said in a teasing tone, do you think they are really qualified for this job? It's just a simple weapon test. Yifeng responded calmly. Tisk tisk, you actually use the team members who have a crush on you as weapon test subjects. Kushina smacked her lips and said, you are becoming more and more like Captain Aizen in Soul Society. But Captain Aizen definitely wouldn't like his classmate's mother. Mrs. Makoto suddenly spoke. Ha 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 ha, they are different in this regard. Kushina laughed out loud and said, that Aizen prefers boys who have been raised since childhood to women. Ichimaru Jin, right, yes, it's a pity that it didn't work out. How could it work out? That's a hot-blooded boy manga, not a rotten girl manga. Yifeng's mouth twitched slightly. It's not a big deal, as long as we can make a pair. Kushina waved her hand and said indifferently, since I watched Magical Girl Uchiha Madara, I have become less and less picky about this kind of thing. That means you are already going further and further down the path of perversion, Teacher Shinako. Yifeng complained. Click. Kushina, wearing lace-edged long gloves, grabbed both sides of Yifeng's face and said angrily, from now on, you are not allowed to call that pen name again. Ha ha ha, I didn't expect that you would have a day of breaking down. Mrs. Makoto laughed happily. Who can tolerate this crappy pen name? Kushina took a deep breath and said with an unhappy face, if it really gets out, how can I, Kushina, survive in the ninja world in the future? It doesn't matter, everyone only knows Teacher Shinako. Mrs. Makoto said with a suppressed smile. Shut up too. Kushina rolled her eyes and looked at Yifeng, saying, it's all your fault, you little fool, what the hell is Shinako? Actually, I just had a sudden thought. Yifeng raised his hands in surrender. Is your second mysterious friend really out of touch now? Kushina took the initiative to change the subject. No, but it's good. Yifeng shook his head and said lightly, it's annoying to have that kind of online friend. The second mysterious friend was added when we had the New Year's Eve dinner last night. He said, how can a random cultivator be my friend? Yifeng instantly understood the identity of this guy, a golden pickup truck from a certain type moon world. After sending a few messages to each other, both sides soon felt that they were not on the same page. In this case, there was no need to contact each other again, and a wave of mutual deletions brought this short awkward chat to an end. Shion and the others have already gone up the mountain. Mrs. Masaka whispered. Fire Country, Luoxia Mountain. Azuki Yugao, who was wearing the clothes of the Anbu, felt a cold breath, and the expression under the mask showed a little solemnity and said, Hayate, do you feel anything wrong? It's a little chilly. Moonlight Hayate responded, saying, but considering that it's just the beginning of spring in our relationship in the mountains, it doesn't seem to be abnormal. No, this breath is not naturally cold. Azuki Yugao frowned and said, it's more like man-made. Who? His eyes suddenly looked to the side, and the ninja sword behind him was unsheathed. He, don't be nervous. A familiar voice sounded, and Mitarashi Anko walked out of the bushes with her hands raised. One of us. In addition to her, there was also Yuhi Kurenai with an awkward smile on her face. You too. Mao Yu Shiyan frowned and said, I was wondering why there was such a cold feeling. It turns out that it was you, the snake girl, who was causing trouble. Snake girl. Hong Do showed a rather dissatisfied expression on her face and said, hey, isn't your nickname a bit too much? Have you been following us? Mao Yu Shiyan asked indifferently. How could it be? I saw it halfway. Anyway, there is nothing to do during the new year, so I brought Hong to see the heroic figure of our Minotaur captain. That's our captain. You are no longer a member of the Anbu. It's not a big deal. I can continue to be one. Mao Yu Shiyan was so embarrassed by this woman's shamelessness that she didn't know what to say. The corners of her mouth under the mask twitched fiercely. As you can see, Captain Yifeng did not go out today. Moonlight Gale stepped forward and said gently, it's just an ordinary reconnaissance mission. We don't think it's necessary to trouble the captain. Reconnaissance mission. Hongdu raised an eyebrow and asked in confusion, I remember there were only a few bandit camps here. Weren't they eliminated some time ago? Originally, it was like this, but a few days ago, there were terrible rumors about white ghosts. Mao Yu Shiyan breathed a sigh of relief and said lightly, several caravans were attacked, and even the caravan guards were scared crazy. Ghost. Hongdu was full of surprise. We suspect it is some kind of scare illusion. Moonlight Gale said. Oh, it just so happens that I brought an illusion master with me. Hongdu patted her best friend Shiri Hong on the shoulder and smiled. Since you are here, let us help and take a look together. This is the task of our Anbu, not a game of playing house. Mao Yu Shiyan's forehead was bulging with blue veins, and said, Sister Hongdu, you should still remember the Anbu rules, don't make it difficult for us. What does it matter? The rules are for the dead and the living. What help are you talking about? I think you just want to get a good impression in front of Captain Yifeng. Contain it, you dead Shotokan. Quote. Don't you think? Be careful. Before Hongdu finished her words, a terrifying white sickle suddenly slashed towards her back. Fortunately, Mao Yu Shiyan reacted quickly enough and pulled her away at the critical moment. This is, what monster? The owner of the white claws is a strange creature with a body length of more than 2 meters, similar in appearance and form to a mantis, but covered with white bones. Is this the white ghost they are talking about? Yu Guangjifeng said with a shocked expression. It's coming, get out of the way. Shiri Hong loudly issued a warning, and her hands also formed a seal at this time. Water escape, water impact, opened his mouth and spit out a huge ball of water. Bang! The water ball hit the mantis monster, sending its body flying several meters away. But the mantis monster quickly stood up again, waving its sickle-shaped forelimbs and flying towards the few people. So fast. Moonlight Gale took a breath and raised his sword to block. Dang! Sparks flew everywhere, and Moonlight Gale gritted his teeth to block the attack of the mantis monster. Snake binding technique. Hongdu threw out long snakes from his sleeves and bound the lower body of the mantis monster tightly. Take advantage of this opportunity. Azuki Yugao clenched the long sword in his hand and slashed at the slender neck of the mantis monster. Puff! The mantis monster's head flew into the sky with one cut. Win! Win! Moonlight Gale wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and panted, "What on earth is this thing? It doesn't look like a natural creature." Hongdu squatted in front of the mantis monster and gently poked its head with his fingers. Is someone conducting some kind of taboo experiment here? Quote. After the words fell, no response was heard. Turning his head to look at his companions, he found that each of them was staring blankly into the depths of the dense forest. Hongdu also turned his head curiously, and what came into his eyes was a series of flashing white figures. How could this happen? Looking at the situation in front of her, Hongdu was completely stunned. White ghosts, there are so many of them. Retreat, retreat quickly. Shiri Hong did not hesitate at all and directly gave the most perfect response. Escape. That's right, the current situation is obviously the only best solution is to escape. Previously, the four of them had used up all their strength to kill only one monster, and now so many of them stayed behind would definitely be suicide. Swish, swish, swish. The other three did not hesitate and ran down the mountain directly. Mao Yu Shiyan had never thought that her maximum speed could be so fast before, and the scenery on both sides was retreating wildly. There were bursts of roars of wild beasts behind her, and goosebumps appeared on her body. What on earth is it? What on earth are these monsters? It's just a simple reconnaissance mission, why did such twists and turns occur? If Captain Yi Feng was here. Click. A frog monster suddenly jumped out of the bushes and blocked her way. Mao Yu Shiyan tightly grasped the long knife in her hand and wanted to stab directly. But when the blade embedded in the frog monster's skin, she felt something was wrong. Corrosion. The skin of this frog monster was actually corrosive. The long knife in her hand was directly melted by the opponent's skin, leaving only half of the handle in her hand. Oops. Mao Yu Shiyan's pupils shrank, and a big snake suddenly appeared and swallowed the frog monster into its mouth. Gulp. Mao Yu Shiyan swallowed her saliva and looked at Hongdo, who was controlling the big snake beside her. Thank you. No thanks, if you can go back, please treat me to a meal. Hongdo forced a smile, took a breath and said, it's a pity, I was thinking of introducing our Hong to Yi Fangjun. Our captain is still a child. Mao Yu Shiyan couldn't help but complain. It seems there is no movement. Shira Hong changed the subject and looked around and asked, have those guys left? That would be great. We have escaped death, right? Yu Gong Jiafeng breathed a sigh of relief. Boom. However, just as he finished speaking, a dull sound suddenly rang out. The ground trembled, and the towering trees in the distance collapsed one by one. Gradually, a calf wrapped in white bone material came into the eyes of everyone present. The calf alone was more than 5 meters long, and the thighs, torso, neck and head above. A terrifying giant tens of meters high appeared, and one look at it made people despair. Monkey. This monster is similar to an ape, but its shoulders and forearms are covered with sharp barbs. Just like the previous monsters, it is covered with white bone material, and its blood-red eyes are full of brutality and bloodthirstiness. How could this happen? There is an advanced version. Hongdu said in a trembling voice. Falling cherry blossoms Nami Jutsu. Yuhi Kurenai made seals with both hands, and cherry blossoms fell from the sky. The giant ape's body also stiffened at this moment, and its eyes were half closed and half open as if it was dozing. You guys go, I'll hold it back. Hong, don't talk nonsense, hurry up. Hongdu, Xian, and Jiafeng gritted their teeth and prepared to turn around and leave, but the giant ape suddenly let out a thunderous roar at this time. How could it be that my illusion was broken so quickly? Yuhi Kurenai opened her eyes, with an expression of disbelief on her face. Swish, swish, swish. The white figures flashed again, surrounding the few people. Okay, no one can escape now. Hongdu sat on the ground, looking desperate. Moonlight Jaifeng gritted his teeth and used a few fire escape ninjutsu, but hitting the giant ape was like raindrops falling into the sea. It's useless. It can't even tickle the opponent. Captain Yifeng. Mao Yuxian stared at the giant ape monster not far away and murmured. Buzz. At this moment, a ray of sword light fell from the sky like a divine weapon. Puff. A large number of white ghosts were killed instantly, turning into wisps of white mist and dissipating in the air. Sorry, I kept you waiting. Yifeng, wearing a long sword and black-framed glasses, appeared in front of everyone. Behind him, there was a red-haired Anbu wearing a mask. Captain Yifeng. Moonlight Gale showed an excited expression on his face. Oh, a hero from the sky. Hongdu shouted. Swish. The red-haired Anbu flashed directly into the center of the white ghosts, waving the long sword in his hand. Those white ghosts fell down in pieces like harvested wheat, and they didn't even have time to scream. Who is this? Seeing this scene, Hongdu gasped and said in disbelief, when did such a fierce man come to the Anbu? She knew very well that these white ghosts were not real cabbages. Each of them had at least as much strength as a special Jonin, but they couldn't even fight back against the opponent. She should be the gray feather lady, right? Mao Yuxian frowned and answered uncertainly. It is said that she was a member of the route before, and was later recruited by the Hokage. Roar. The successive deaths of his companions seemed to anger the proudly standing giant ape monster. It roared and raised its fist like a small hill to crush the few people. Scorch escape. Candle fire. Yifeng stretched out an index finger and spit out his lips. Puff. A small flame ignited on the index finger, swaying towards the giant ape's fist. Boom. In the dull and shocked eyes of the crowd, the small flame instantly ignited the giant ape monster's body. The air around became scorching, and rolling heat waves rushed towards the crowd. Boom. The huge body of the giant ape monster collapsed with a loud bang, splashing a strong wind. Yifeng's hair flew in front of his forehead, and the corners of his mouth curved into a calm and confident smile. Mao Yuxian was stunned at this moment, thinking that she would never forget the shocking scene in her life. Really, it's incredible, Shi Ri Hong exclaimed. How is it? Hong Do patted her shoulder and smiled slightly. Although there are some twists and turns, it's not a loss this time after all, right? Captain Yifeng, did you just use the burning escape? Only the focus of the moonlight wind was different from that of the girls. Indeed, this is my secret weapon for the Chunin exam. Yifeng smiled and said gently, can you please keep it secret for me? It's no problem to keep it secret. Hong Do smiled carelessly and shook his head, but your current strength to participate in the Chunin exam, isn't it a bit? To be honest, I have begun to sympathize with the candidates from other ninja villages. Konoha, Hokage's office. What did this Danzo do? Looking at the report in his hand, Sarutobi Hiruzen was furious. Yifeng gently consoled him, maybe it wasn't Danzo. If it wasn't him, who else could it be? Sarutobi Hiruzen snorted coldly and said, I know you still miss the old times, Yifeng. But now Danzo has become a scourge to Konoha and even the entire ninja world. He deserves to die. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.